everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Amala Evanobi, and today we're going to be reacting to another Jubilee Middle Ground that just came out, and of course, it is Trump versus Harris. This is the time we're in, guys. We're doing a lot of election coverage on this channel, because we just can't shut up about it. Everybody needs to talk about it. Everybody needs to debate it. Even though I know how I'm voting, you probably know how you're voting, and not much of that is going to change between, you know, there and now. But today we're going to be reacting to it, and I'm sure it's going to get a little hectic, probably a little heated, a little off the rails, as you're seeing on today's thumbnail. But of course, before we get into this, we'll take a deep breath and introduce Taylor in Nashville.
Oh yeah, deep breaths, everyone. These are tough to get through. It's a slog, but you know, I think the analysis and unpacking and hopefully some fact checking and laying out some more reasonable lines of thought as we watch this will be the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. So let's get into it.
Exactly right. We are not ABC's David Muir and Lindsay Davis. We are going to be fact checking both sides on today. We're going to be even handed on today's show. Without further ado, let's get into Jubilee's Middle Ground.
The term third world is offensive to me, bro. Because
Really?
you're talking about a subhuman.
No,
you're talking
it's not
about
that
people
it's a
who aren't
subhuman.
as developed as we are, so they're the third world.
So if you're stoning women after they've been raped,
In the
hold on,
Bible, bro,
no.
I'm
from Iran, and it happens now.
Another day,
Does
another
happen
episode
now.
of Middle Ground. Hi, my name's John. I am the host of Radical Empathy, and I will be moderating today's episode between Harris supporters and Trump supporters. Our first prompt is, no matter what my candidate does, I will still vote for them.
Okay. Wild statement. Absolutely not. Not no matter what they do. There are so many things within the realm of what somebody can and can't do that I would view as, you know, like morally repugnant versus morally acceptable. So no, I'm not stepping forward for that. So there's a ton of things that a candidate could do between now and me voting for them that would totally make me withdraw my support. Taylor, I imagine you're the same on that one.
Yeah, I guess this one's a good one to start with because then you can see exactly who is so ideologically possessed or so bought into the election hysteria that they are willing to answer yes on this.
Yeah.
And I think that will be telling for what we see further on. But yeah, of course not.
Yeah, okay, good. Good to know. Okay, who's stepping forward?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said if Trump came out in a crowd and just started, you know, yelling at people, calling them stupid, or like did something crazy that I wouldn't still vote for him. It would have to be like walk out in Times Square, shoot someone in the face kind of thing. Like,
Shoot someone in the face. That's the line in the sand, is shooting someone in the face. I get what he's trying to say. You know, between these two candidates, he's going to go for the candidate that's best for him. But I think we can maybe draw the line somewhere far sooner than shooting somebody in the face.
But not calling people stupid. That was such a a strange thing to invoke, which I'm pretty sure Trump has called lots of people stupid, but mainly the people who've been running the countries, which I guess is fair game in the debate. But I digress.
Fair enough.
Something outrageous for me to not vote for him right now, and that is only because these are the only two choices I have, which sucks for us as American people. We should have a lot more choice in this. We should have had more debates. We should have had more people involved in the debates. It would take a lot for me not to vote for him just because I care so much about securing our country and my right to own firearms.
So for me, we know Kamala's character. And so even thinking if she does the worst thing ever, would I still vote for her? Yeah, because I know the worst thing that she could do wouldn't even be the best thing that Trump does, right? Like
Ay, Dios mío. What do you even say to that? It's just such a feelings-based answer, and it's just informed by a little bit of TDS, a little Trump derangement syndrome, but alas, what did we expect?
The bars are very different. In addition to that, of course I'm going to vote for her because Trump is such a terrible alternative. I'm afraid to see what our country would look like.
I'm voting for Kamala for pragmatic reasons. January 6th made Trump ineligible in my eyes. He's a traitor. He disrupted 200 years of peaceful transfer of power.
Yep, when he encouraged those people to peacefully protest, that made him a traitor, all right.
For his own selfish reasons that he now admits that he lost by a whisker. Sarcastically, according to him.
I said that sarcastically, David Muir. I didn't hear the sarcasm. All right.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
I'll go first again. Like, one of these two people are getting in. Right now, my choice is Kamala Harris. That doesn't mean that anything that she does is going to keep that support. My biggest issue right now is the genocide going on in Gaza, propagated by both the Trump administration and the Biden administration. You could say that prior to October 7th, there was peace going on between Israel and Gaza, as I've heard a lot of Trump supporters say. That's just factually inaccurate, especially with the Abraham Accords, especially with moving the embassy to Jerusalem. These are things that I'm very critical of Trump on, and I'm still having trouble announcing my support for Kamala Harris. It was a big moral decision to even come on the show in support of her, but that's because I don't support her again. I think that Donald Trump is going to be somebody that's far worse for the country than she will be.
So, did you know that this is the lowest civilian to combatant death rate of any war in recent history?
Sheila Nazarian, we've been on Jubilees together. Obviously, I know Sheila, so I had a feeling she was going to be on this episode, and I hope it just doesn't become an Israel-Gaza debate thing, because we've already done that, been there, done that, and you guys know how I feel about that subject matter. I've talked about it in depth, and I don't know. Trump is the one who says he wants to end that conflict on day one and get into talks about it, and we'll see if that's possible. Or true, I guess, if he makes it.
Did you know that?
Is this going to be a Gaza topic? I'm so ready to
I'm
go
responding
on Gaza. I'm so
to
ready.
that. Because I can't just let your word genocide go, because it's not a genocide. If it was a genocide, it would have ended 2 days later, and it would have been fine. Everyone would be dead.
We'll have
so
to
it's not
keep
a
it
genocide.
at that, though, just for
that's
time's
fine.
sake. But I want to hear, going back to the prompt, you came in because you disagreed. You wouldn't vote for Trump unconditionally. No, of course. I mean, I think as a moral human being that comes from a place of love with strong core values, I can't just give anyone, carte blanche that no matter what you do, you're going to have my love and support. But from, barring anything crazy like the situation that Joe mentioned, it's pretty much 100%. And actually, I am part of Jewish Voices for Trump, and I really appreciate all of the things that he's done for the Jewish people and for the state of Israel as well. So the next prompt is, Harris beat Trump in the debate. Will the agreeers please step forward?
Tough one, and I'll explain why this is a tough one. First of all, that debate was heavily rigged. I don't know if y'all saw the same debate that I saw, okay? But I saw 3 people debate Donald Trump that night on ABC, okay? I saw David, I saw Lindsay, I saw Kamala. And we all know that Kamala wasn't fact-checked the entire night. Trump was fact-checked the entire night. The questions that were posed towards Donald Trump were far more invasive questions, far more hardball questions than the softball questions that Kamala was given. They would ask Trump about a statement that they disagreed with that he made or that they found offensive, and then essentially ask Kamala Harris, how'd you feel about that offensive thing that he did? So, did she win the debate? yeah, she won the debate in my eyes, and I said that in the original video that I made about the debate. But when you have a debate that is rigged in your favor, I'd hope you win. I hope you could go out there and just, land threes all day if the threes are being handed to you or if somebody else is shooting them for you. So there's that going on. Despite that, Kamala Harris did find herself, I think, at the top of her game in scripting out her moves during the debate, baiting Donald Trump with certain statements, especially the one about his rallies, that got him to really move away from points he should have been making and made her look like a far better candidate with them being compared with one another. I think in talking about the issues, Donald Trump chose to focus on more extreme radical examples of the issues we're facing. When he was talking about the Haitians in Springfield, he chose to focus on the pets and they're eating the dogs and all this stuff, rather than give, I think, a comprehensive view of what the immigration problem looks like in this country with abortion, rather than giving a comprehensive view of what's going on with abortion in this country and the fact that it's no longer safe, legal, and rare. And Democrats themselves are saying safe, legal, and accessible, meaning they want this to happen often. So I think he could have focused more holistically on the issues rather than jumping to extremes, like they're eating the dogs and, kids can be killed outside of the womb or can be killed in late-term abortions. Now, we can debate whether or not the things he was saying are true, which is what we'll get into in this video, but if you're speaking to the American people on debate night like this, you really have to hone in on how you're communicating with them and focus on the best way to communicate to the widest scope of people. And I feel like he missed on that. So I would walk forward and say Harris beat Trump in the debate, but with those caveats, okay?
Yeah, put a big old asterisk next to that, like Leah Thomas winning a swimming race. There was not exactly a fair competition going on. But you're right. Ultimately, political debates is about optics. It's about what people take away from it. And Harris emerged from that in a stronger position than she was going into it. And I don't think the same can be said of Trump, even though it was done in a slimy, unfair way. He still could have handled it a lot better and come out looking a lot better. And he missed that opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have a concept of a plan. Come on. You do have plans. You do have policy. What are you talking about? Yeah, anyways, we'll keep watching. Let's see what they say.
We're all looking at you.
I'm happy to see you join us.
Hey.
Unfortunately, when I watched the debate, a lot of Republicans were saying that Trump was going to completely obliterate Kamala Harris, and I was one of those people, but I'm the kind of person, I gotta be factual and honest, and I can't lie to myself. So let's get the obvious out of the way. It was a little bit bogus against Trump with 1 versus 3. They only fact-checked Trump. They didn't really fact-check Kamala as much as I think they should have.
But
when
one candidate lies more.
When
When
we're telling the truth
and telling facts.
And basically, the only
We don't have to fact check when we're telling the truth and telling facts. Now, in our video after the debate, we did fact check a lot of the things that Kamala Harris said, but just off the top of my head, so we can make sure that we lay that to rest, Kamala Harris was not spitting facts all night. She said that they have no active military deployed in a war zone. You had actual active military members watching the debate, filming on their cell phone and saying, well, where the hell are we right now? In uniform, watching Kamala Harris talk about how they're apparently not on active duty right now. She said that she didn't want to ban fracking or get rid of fracking. That contradicted statement she's made in the past. She said she didn't want to take anybody's guns, not only before the debate, but after the debate. She has talked about placing bans on AR-15 style rifles, assault weapons, as she puts it. She talked about being a racial unifier during the debate while, flaming the fires and stoking the fires of the BLM riots when they were happening and saying they're not going to stop. She said she wants to do something about immigration. We have her on video saying end deportation and chanting with a bunch of protesters. She gave lie after lie after lie. She lied on Donald Trump when he said there are fine people on both sides and took that quote out of context. She actively lied in his face saying that he was a supporter of Project 2025. He fact-checked her right then and there and said, no, I'm not a supporter of Project 2025. She went on to share that lie over and over again and continues to do so to this day. Not once did one of the moderators step in and say, actually, Kamala Harris, what you just said is wrong. Not once. And there are many more lies that she put forth during the debate as well.
And just one little button on that. Guess who was moderating the Democratic primary debate in 2019, in which Kamala Harris was asked about her stance on banning guns, And when Biden took her to task over her stance being too strong and unconstitutional, guess who asked her that question? It was David Muir. It was an ABC hosted debate. And yet he was so eager to fact check Trump and interjecting constantly on him. And yet for something that he had already fact checked Kamala Harris on, something he'd already asked her on before, he had absolutely nothing to say. Just wild, in case that wasn't enough evidence of the bias in the moderation.
So yeah, there you go. Yeah, we don't need to be fact checked when we're telling the facts. Please, just be so for real right now.
Only 2 times that they did fact check was we don't murder babies after 9 months, and Haitians aren't eating dogs.
And what Trump was quoted as saying was actually something that a representative said, that like once the baby's born, we can decide what to do with it, which was in an active discussion about abortion. Now, again, as I stated, this is one of my criticisms of Donald Trump, that he leaned on very extreme examples for issues that I feel like most people would understand if you explained from a normal perspective rather than the extreme examples, whether or not those conversations are being had or not. But what he said was not necessarily false.
In Ohio.
Well, Kamala Harris perpetuated the myth that Donald Trump said there are fine people on both sides, even though Politico came out and said that this is missing a lot of context.
Do you need to see the video?
When Trump said there are fine people on both sides, he was talking about 2 kinds of people. One were historians who wanted to keep the Robert E. Lee statue in place, and the other group were people who wanted to tear the statue down. So the Antifa, the left-wing individuals, and the historians. These were the 2 groups of people he initially were talking about. Now, the neo-Nazis and the white supremacists and the hooligans who came to interrupt, this was an outside group who came to Charlottesville to stir up trouble. So when people say that there are...
Dude, and it's like a small group of the most pitiful tiki torch holding losers you've ever seen in your life, and I'm supposed to be like quaking in my boots over white supremacists? No, they're dumb. They're dumb. I get it. And there's extremists on both sides. Like, what are we talking about? In the same way that Trump said there's fine people on both sides. And this has been fact checked to hell. I mean, there are so many websites that say this is a quote completely taken out of context. He was not cheering on, congratulating, or calling, white supremacists and neo-Nazis fine people. That is by no means what he was saying.
You really have to stop.
So when Donald Trump
you're referring to them as historians, when we're talking about people who chanted Jews will not replace us, and neo-Nazi chants that were used in World War II.
He's
talking about
Charlottesville. What it seems like is historians that were sympathetic to keeping the statues in public view.
And we're talking about a statue of Robert E. Lee, a Civil War general.
But even the historians that you're referencing, if they were actual historians, wouldn't you want those types of statues in something like a museum or somewhere where people can learn the historical context?
What does it matter what the venue of the statue itself? You can read it out in public at a park where the plaque says this guy's a Confederate general, or you can go to the museum and see it there. It doesn't really matter the venue of the statue. What matters is the defacing of the statue, the vandalism, people trying to tear them down without authorization. These are the things that people are discussing.
Not in the public.
Let's talk about what those historians did. They enslaved your people.
I think we've covered just
your people. Got to bring up the your people. I'm such a black ally.
So I think we've covered this part. Remember, the prompt is, I think Harris won the debate.
We forgot about the prompt already.
Yes, to be honest, I want to extend I have mad respect.
Absolutely.
For anybody here, any Trump supporter who will stand here in this room and say anything in support of the guy who gave that debate performance.
Oh, so he set it up as if he was going to compliment him and say, like, I have mad respect for you for stepping forward and saying that Harris won the debate. Instead, he said, I have mad respect for anybody who could say anything good about Donald Trump, which is demeaning and condescending, but it's a commonality on this side of things.
Literally speaking, as a Filipino person who, for years, we have a play named Dog Eaters on us. It was dog eating and othering of meats were used to other us and to make us feel like some other kind of different, dehumanizing thing because we're eating people's pets. And
so your feelings are hurt. What else? Like what? Huh? So your feelings are hurt because it triggered something that you were bullied for back in the day? I don't know what to say. It matters whether or not the complaints are true. It matters whether or not the residents of Springfield are actually seeing the things that they're seeing, experiencing the things that they're seeing. It doesn't matter the stereotype that it perpetuates, especially if the stories are true. We are not responsible for the radical things that people do on the other end of hearing the truth. So we must figure out what the truth is. If you have residents coming forward and saying, yo, I saw a freaking cat on on the barbecue grill of my neighbor's house and they're immigrants that just got here. Or, yo, I was at the public park, Snyder Park, specifically in Springfield, Ohio, and they came and they snatched up the geese and the ducks from the damn park, beheaded them and started eating them. I'm gonna go, you know what? This could perpetuate maybe a harmful stereotype if this is not true. But I'm also going to send a couple of police officers to investigate what you just said was happening, because that's a little concerning if it's actually going on. You know, I'd like to have geese and ducks at the public park because they've been there. So let's investigate the claims and figure out what's going on, rather than complaining that the claims lead to harmful stereotypes.
And now they're putting it on Haitians. And now there's bomb threats in Ohio because of this ridiculous thing that he spewed because he got triggered.
Okay, a bomb threat, a theoretical threat, okay, so somebody calls in, versus actual threats to lives, actual endangerment of people, actual taking of government resources from the citizens living in Springfield, Ohio. Weigh those out for me, my dude.
Because Kamala talked about how people were walking out of his crowds because he's bored and tired and senile.
And the main reason why I am sitting down is because Donald Trump took too much bait. I think that kind of performance was okay against Biden. And if you guys notice, a lot of the things he said against Kamala, he said against Biden. About the abortion, the baby being killed after it's born, he never should have said that. About a lot of the points that he made against Biden, and he did it against Kamala too. But the thing is, Biden literally just fell apart and quote unquote died on stage, what we saw last time, and that's why they switched him out with Kamala. So I guess Trump I was expecting him to change his playbook. You have to go after her record.
Well, it's hard to go after her record when she's impeccable, right? We have the
only qualified person there.
A prosecutor, an attorney general, a senator, and a vice president. So
impeccable record. You can name somebody's titles. That doesn't mean their record is impeccable. She's held a lot of, very prestigious titles within our society, and she's not done a lot with those titles. So I don't know that makes her record impeccable.
For him to go after her, he can't go after her policy because it's good. All he can do is make the same old, she said it herself, the same old playbook, and that's what we saw.
And y'all, I should mention, I was supposed to be on this episode, but I was in Florida with my grandmother taking care of her health problems. So I was supposed to be on this. I would have eaten y'all up. I'm sorry.
And she totally destroyed him. She came with
respectfully, I would have eaten y'all up.
Facts. She also just pointed out just how ridiculous the things were that he was saying, to your point about the, eating dogs and all of that stuff. I mean, none of it was factual. It had already been released that none of that stuff was true, and he still put it forward. But I respect you for coming forward.
We're gonna pause here. We're gonna bring in our disagreeers.
So I would say that when I judge, my kids play sports, when I judge who won or who didn't win, I want it to be an even playing field, and I think it should be a fair contest. And I know you guys love Kamala Harris, and you think she has an impeccable record.
Kamala.
But CNN has pronounced it 12, 20 times on record.
We're telling you how to.
Just like every other person.
We're telling you how to pronounce it. So it's just, please calm down. It's not a microaggression. She mispronounced the name. That's okay. I've seen plenty of people on the left and right mispronounce this woman's name. It's okay. You can chill. It's not that big of a deal. The need to jump on people and bite them for everything wrong is exactly what's wrong with our society right now. We're so coddled and sensitive and hyper offended by everything at any given moment that you can't even get away with mispronouncing somebody's name. And I say that because guess what? My name is Amala and her name is Kamala. We both deal with the same problem all the time. It's not a damn microaggression.
Semantics, you guys. Let's not get stuck. Let's go to policies.
Can we just pronounce your name right, please?
Let's go past this and hear the rest of Sheila.
So I think that there have been a lot of things that have been fact-checked by social media influencers and commentators like myself on Ms. Harris's policies and what she said as well. And there are certainly things that could have been fact-checked on that end as well. And I too am an immigrant. My family escaped on the back of a pickup truck from Iran in 1985 while being shot at by border police. I spent a night in the Pakistani deserts. We were caught and we had to escape, and it took 6 months for my family to come here not speaking English. We left everything behind, started from nothing, living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 8 people in it. The reason why I say that is You know, America is the greatest country on earth, and to erase its history instead of learning from it is what they did in China. Unburdening what has been.
Taking down a statue is not erasing
guys, let me just finish. Unburdening.
Oh my gosh, the hubris, the grandiosity. Like, we are so amazing in the current day and age, and we must go back through history and punish the people who did things that were historically accepted at the time. It just doesn't make sense to do it. And if anything, if you have valid criticism for the statue, leave it up so you can criticize it. You can walk with your kids and see these statues that you have such a problem with, and give them the history of the man that you deem to be this awful, horrible, racist enslaver. And it's a sign of the progress we've made as a society. Not that we're putting these people up to, bow at their feet and talk about how wonderful they are. It's just a sign of what was going on at the time, and it is preservation of this nation's history.
What has been and looking forward to what can be is literally what was used by people trying to get rid of the old and bringing in the new world, like China Communist Party.
The group of people being affected by those statues are telling you what it's doing to us.
Correct.
Oh, so my feelings trump your feelings. If I'm offended by something, you must do something about it. Even though there are plenty of black people who have no problem with these statues being up, we must just listen and bow to whatever it is that you feel, because you're offended and you are louder than everybody else. Got it. Okay.
He's the one that suggested to go into the museum.
We're talking a lot about this statue,
Seriously,
but we do want to hear about the debate. Let's just switch back to the debate. If we want to talk about the statue again later, we totally can.
Yeah.
I don't think either one of them won the debate. I feel like the only people that really lost were, other than them, was the American people. I imagine we can all kind of agree on that. Nothing was really said. Nothing was really, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, but nothing ever actually gets done.
They're shaking their heads. They can't possibly agree with something. And this is very interesting, because we have people echoing this sentiment. People who are saying, I'm not going to vote at all because I'm just so done with the system. People who are completely politically apathetic. People who say there are problems on both sides, as Chaperone did recently, and she's getting a lot of hate for, which we'll talk about tomorrow. This is a pretty, people think it's a lukewarm take to say there's issues on both sides or the American people are losing here. In a lot of ways, it's true. And he's giving a very nuanced take on this as we speak, but they can't agree with him because, he's on another side, a different side than yours?
Done. I think as far as the debate goes, Trump dropped the ball on a couple things. The Medicare or Medicaid conversation or question that he received, he kind of dropped the ball on that one. But other than that, it was just a bunch of zingers and back and forth and
all about ego.
Putting your hand up to make sure that the other side knows that you're judging I'm judging you, Trump. It was more show than anything. Kamala handled herself. I'll give you that. Kamala did a lot better than a lot of people thought she did. I think that's why a lot of people are saying she won, because we all, she did better than Biden. And anybody that did better than Biden, it's hell yeah, we have a winner, guys. But at the end of the day,
we all agree that was a low bar.
Yeah.
We're going to reset.
Hey, before we go any further,
Oh, sorry, we gotta skip the ads. Sorry, Jubilee. Secure your bag, sis.
This is a quote from Trump from the debate.
They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it.
If you agree with that quote, step forward.
I agree with the quote. I'm stepping forward. You got a fentanyl crisis at our southern border. You have people of all different criminal backgrounds funneled into our country. You have people who are entering the country on an illegal basis, choosing not to listen to our laws, and then continuing not to listen to our laws. For what respect could you have for American laws if you broke them to enter the country in the first place? And this is not to say that all illegal immigrants are criminals. It's just to say there's a lot, and one is too many. These are all preventable crimes. When we're talking about the death of Laken Riley, if we're talking about the death of Jocelyn Nungary, who was, 12 years old, had her life taken by 2 illegal immigrants who are now being used in the American prison system with your resources, with your tax dollars, with the time of your public servants and representatives, all these different things. 100% preventable if you get a handle on the border. So while what Trump's saying might come across as crass or perpetuating stereotypes or labeling people of a certain race in a certain way, first of all, there's people of all different races entering our country in the southern border and going on to commit crimes in this country. So it's not even a racial thing. And you know what? What he's saying might be a hard truth to hear, but it is a truth nonetheless. And if we can get past our emotions and really get to the heart of what he's saying, we would see that it's the truth. And maybe he could use a little fine tuning on the way he communicates these things, because it's a very emotional thing that he's saying that I feel like a lot of Americans would agree with if it was communicated in the right way, and it's unfortunate that it's not.
It's just this. Okay. From that quote, at least from what I got personally, was he was talking about the illegal immigrants that aren't being background checked, that are being let in. Personally to me, my grandparents and my mother are immigrants. They're not from here, and they came here and they worked very hard to get their residency and their citizenship, and they went through all the bells and whistles to get through here. And so they're letting people in. I mean, it's affected so many of my friends that live towards the border of San Diego, places like that. They are letting people in that are criminals, that are not being checked well, or at least not being checked at all. And I think that's what he meant. He kind of has a really sassy way of saying things, or kind of just, sometimes I feel like he's not very eloquent at times. And so he says things and people are like, well, what does that mean? That doesn't make any sense. That's at least the context that I'm getting it from. That's at least what I can see, and that's at least what's been proven, so.
I met this girl, by the way, in a Jubilee video that has not come out yet, and she is so very sweet, and she's dealing with a lot of hate on the other end of being part of these videos, and it sucks to hear that. By simply coming forward and sharing your opinion, you get just hated on from every angle. It's awful.
I feel that way. I feel like a lot of the people that are just being willy-nilly let in here they're passing multiple other countries just to get to America, to claim asylum in America. I don't blame anybody for coming here at all. If I was born outside of this country, I would want to do the exact same thing. Us as Americans, all of us, hit the lottery when we got born here. And if you've come here legally through the process, my issue is the people that are just being let in. Oh, they claimed asylum. Here's a bank card, here's a cell phone, and by the way, show up to this court date in 3 years, promise, right? Like pinky promise, and then they just let them go. They send them to whatever city, Chicago, New York. The people that actually live there are the ones, in Colorado, where I'm from, we are the ones that are actually seeing this stuff and being affected by it, whether it's people driving on the road without license plates, insurance, don't know how to drive because they're coming from whatever country they're coming from. But every single person that comes in here illegally is being counted in the census. When you count these people in the census, that's going to give people more house seats, I'm pretty sure. And right. I don't want to misspeak.
No, you're
Hopefully
right.
A little truth bubble will pop up at the bottom. But they're getting
that it did, and there it is.
House seats, they're getting electoral votes. These things matter when it comes to the election. That's the only thing I care about. I don't care if people are coming here legally and want to live a better life, want to have that American dream. That being said, you're taking away things, taxpayer money that all of us as taxpayers are paying that should be going to Americans, should be going to veterans. Veterans are, make up, I want to say, less than 8% of the American population, and less than 2% of Americans join the military and volunteer to join our military forces. And the fact that we have homeless vets should not be a thing. Absolutely. And we're just giving this money to these people that come here illegally, don't play by the same rules.
I see a lot of
Absolutely right. There's just so many different issues. It's not just crime and the fact that people are coming and committing crimes. They're burdening our medical systems. They're burdening our welfare systems. You have poor, impoverished Americans who are trying to get welfare. They're standing behind a line of illegal immigrants in this country who are getting welfare, EBT, SNAP, all these different things far before they do. You have people getting kicked out of their school to make shelters for illegal immigrants. You have all these different systems that are now being burdened by their presence, plus the things like crime. Plus the sort of the criminality that is taking place as people are getting up to the southern border. You've got people taking children, kidnapping children essentially, taking them to the southern border, pretending to be their parents, yet Trump gets chastised for putting kids in cages and separating from these so-called parents when you can show up at the border, you can give them a random age that is not your age whatsoever, you can give them a random name that's not your name whatsoever, they're not going to background check you, they're not going to figure out anything about you before releasing you into our society and saying, oh, can you come back for a court date, as this guy said. Do you think they're showing back up for the court dates? Absolutely not. You have young girls and boys getting sexually assaulted in their journey up to the southern border. You had one girl who made it to our Border Patrol agents. They did a rape kit on this girl. They found tens of different DNA from men inside this girl's body. That was how many times she had been sexually assaulted and raped in her journey up the southern border. And this is happening all the time. Not to mention the drugs being funneled in. All of these different things compound upon one another to create a much larger issue that is so detrimental to not only the United States, but the West at large. And the sooner we address this, the sooner our country gets better. But we're called racist, bigots, xenophobes for bringing up these very valid issues, even though we cushion these conversations by saying we do not feel this way about all immigrants, and especially the people who want to come here legally, lead a better life, and contribute to our nation. But there are so many that aren't.
Nods. Do you believe that this is an intentional strategy? You talked about like the sense, how it affects the census.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, over 16 million people have come into this country illegally during this administration. And immigration actually is the thing that catapulted me from Democrat to Republican. I'm from Chicago. And as you know, we have the migrant crisis, thousands upon thousands. We're talking 50,000 illegal immigrants that just hit our city. And I actually did vote for Biden. I'll whisper and say that, not that proud to admit it now, but I remember when they first turned a school in my area into a migrant shelter, and it was the Wadsworth Elementary School. And they also turned South Shore High School into a migrant shelter as well. When they did that, I remember the protest, I remember going to these community meetings that they have about how they're gonna explain to you how immigrants need help. And I remember sitting there as a person who voted for Biden, and I'm just listening to these people, the aldermen, city council members, pro-immigrant groups. They come to lecture us black folk on the south side of Chicago. And they talk to us like we're stupid. These people are from Venezuela. They speak Spanish. They live in poverty. They need help. And that's why this facility in your neighborhood is being turned into a migrant shelter.
Yeah, what did Kamala Harris say about granting over 100,000 Haitian migrants TPS, temporary protective status? They're the ones who need to be protected. They're the ones who need to feel secure in this country and be supported, not American citizens. Please make that make sense. And when you're dealing with people who are coming into this country from cultures that are wholly divided from American culture and from Western culture, you're going to deal with other problems, stabbings, rapes, things that people are experiencing right now in Western Europe that should be talked about. Yet they're holding these meetings and having like the migrants come in and say, well, in this country, here's how we treat women. In this country, we don't chop off people's hands when they steal a loaf of bread from us. In this country, when women wear crop tops, we don't stare at them or gang rape them. And how well does that lecture work? I'm wondering, because we're seeing crimes like this be on the uptick. We're seeing millions of people affected by this day in and day out. And yet we are told we're racist, we're bigots, we're xenophobes. I'm sorry, if you want to come in this country, abide by this country's culture, and of course bring your own culture with you, but within reason and with obeyance of our laws, then that's fine. But if you're going to do anything else, or you can't accept the culture that you need to assimilate to in order to be here, I'm sorry, you gotta go. You gotta go.
So it's very frustrating with the Democrats, this sort of lecturing, this condescending tone that they use against you. I don't need to be lectured to about what people need. Black people in Chicago need help. Veterans, as you were saying earlier, they need help. Poor people need help. We have a lot of problems in our own community, and I respect people and I understand the passion and ambition behind people who come to this country. But to explain and lecture to me why I have to be quiet and accept it, that's never gonna happen.
I know that we have more to say, but I'm gonna bring in the disagreeers for time.
So I might let some of the people on my side even talk about Biden's shift to the right when it comes to immigration, more deportations in the Trump administration. That's not something that I'm particularly passionate about. I don't really believe in removing people who are fleeing political persecution or looking for a better life for their families.
Is that what the millions of people who are coming across the border are doing? And what does he say to the people who have been actively arrested for crimes here in this country and devastating, heinous crimes against American citizens? I wonder what he has to say about that, because not every single person who's crossing the border is here to flee persecution in their home country.
What I would say to the people that are worried about vetting or worried about who necessarily is in this country is increase the pathway to citizenship. Not only should we be able to vet who these people are, we'll be able to add them and actually fully understand what they're here for, what their motivations are,
And if you want to garner those voters, you got to capitulate to those voters. And I think Republicans can do that. A lot of Hispanic.
Taylor, you have something to say. I saw your face.
Or we could close the border and make immigration go through legal ports of entry and have people go through a real immigration process where they can be properly vetted and then integrated into American society. You don't increase the pathway to citizenship. That just further incentivizes more illegal immigration to come. And that is the problem. There is a wide open door, a big sign that the Biden administration put up when they reversed Trump's policies when they took office, saying you can come in, you'll get asylum, you'll get temporary protected status, we'll get you an airplane ticket and get to anywhere you want to go in the country. We'll give you a cell phone, we'll give you welfare, we'll give you all the things that you want. Of course, people are going to come in because people do what they're incentivized to do in their own rational self-interest. And so in a way, you can't even really blame the immigrants because it's a great deal for them. But who's making that deal? Who's creating that incentives? It's our broken policies. And we can't talk about reforming immigration until we close the border. Trump used to say, you don't have a border, you don't have a country. And it's so silly to say we should be increasing the number of people who were putting on a pathway to citizenship through illegal immigration when you haven't addressed the root issue, which is an unsecure border where millions of people are allowed to pour in.
Yeah, dude, and it's crazy. And you have American citizens who are like going to the airport, filming the amount of illegal immigrants who are being given these free flights to go wherever it is they want to go, to be flown out to these sanctuary cities of their choice or whatever. Meanwhile, it's like, if you're an illegal immigrant and you have no identification papers, please get in this line. And then, okay, they go in this line. Meanwhile, if you're an American citizen, I need your ID, I need your passport. Also, I need to take a photograph of you. I need to know where you're going and all these different things. What is going on? That this is the world we are living in. It is peak clown world. This is peak performance clown world, guys.
That come from there have conservative values. You shouldn't just write them off as people that can't drive or people that are not talented.
No, I'm not saying that.
They're not written off as people who can't drive. They're active illegal immigrants crossing the border who have never driven a car in their lives, who are then being granted licenses, which, by the way, if you're on the Democratic side of things, your VP pick, Tim Walz, was an active support of. In Springfield, Ohio, you had so many Haitian immigrants being given the ability to drive that they're running into trash cans, they're hitting other people. You had an 11-year-old boy who died last year because he was hit by a Haitian immigrant. So these are active problems that I think not enough people think about when we're having the conversation about assimilation and what it means to move to a different country and have a different lifestyle. Assimilation is not all about culture. It is about the daily lifestyle that people are actively participating in every single day when they are now an American citizen or treated like an American citizen. And if you've never driven a car before and you give a whole ton of people the ability to drive in your country, guess what it's going to lead to? It's going to ramp up accidents. People are going to get hurt. The immigrants themselves are going to get hurt. And this is often a conversation that's lost on us because we're accused of calling these people stupid. No, I mean, if I, at my, big age of 24 years old, had never driven a car before, I would hope to get some lessons in an empty parking lot before I'm placed in the driver's seat of a car and told I'm given a license. So we need to talk about these things. These are active questions that need to be answered before we just allow anybody and their mother and brother into this country. Simple as that.
Real quick, you nailed it a minute ago when you said the truth may be uncomfortable, but what is the truth? And then we have to deal with the truth. And right now, the truth is the residents of Springfield are suffering from this undue burden that's been placed on them from these policies. The truth is that poor 11-year-old boy, Aiden, was killed because of allowing illegal immigrants into the country who weren't properly vetted before they were given a car or got a hold of a car somehow and were allowed to drive on the streets. And this, honestly, this is where it's real. It's about real consequences, and it sounds really good, and you feel morally superior when you're able to sit there and say, well, you're encouraging discrimination against these migrants by saying that they can't drive. Well, tell that to Aiden's parents.
Yeah.
My great uncle was killed by an illegal immigrant a few years ago, who was drunk driving. What did he die for? For your ideology, so you could feel morally superior by telling me that I'm discriminating by saying that they can't drive. That's not going to bring my great uncle back. So this is real stuff. The consequences are real, and that's why people care. And yeah, it might not be comfortable to hear, but the truth isn't comfortable. And
right.
we don't live in this sunshine and rainbows, daisies world. There are people who do not share your values. There are people who do not understand your culture. There are people who will exploit things. There are people who engage in criminality. There are people who will sexually assault, will do drugs. And you have to mitigate against that somehow. And by just opening this up, you are causing suffering of your citizens of America. And that is wrong, and it's crazy, and it's your fanciful, good-natured, good-feeling intentions that are creating these horrible effects and harming your fellow citizens. And the fact that he can't see that is just really, it hurts me and angers me, but extrapolate that out to a large portion of the electorate that thinks this way and supports this stuff, and that's what we're dealing with. So it's just like, how can we get through to people to see this stuff? It's really frustrating when the truth is this. It's this obvious and slapping you in the face, and yet you're just like, no, keep on going.
Yeah, so. The truth is the truth, no matter how you say it.
They're not talented. I'm just saying.
You're saying they might not even be qualified to drive a vehicle.
I mean,
yeah, they're not. A lot of them are not. Just in the same way, if you've never driven a vehicle before and somebody placed you in one, you're not qualified to drive that vehicle.
It's kind of
no, Joe. I just want to really quick. I want to
just
ask you a real quick question.
Yeah.
Can you please define what immigrants who are seeking asylum means?
So I'm political persecution, like you were saying, or somebody's going to murder them, or whatever it is.
Okay.
I get, like, it could be 100% true. I'm not
so
like.
Are those things?
Let him finish.
I'm just asking.
But you're assuming everyone who's coming here is like literally being shot at, like my family was. Or
you have people who are active members in gangs coming up and saying, "I'm seeking asylum in the United States," and then coming on to continue their gang violence in our country.
Actually, but when you see the videos,
okay, yeah, but what about your family? Let's talk about your family.
So why aren't we talking about the bipartisan bill where the Republicans had a chance to do something about it?
So Joe tried to answer your question. Why are you asking it?
I'm asking it because I have a lot of people in the Filipino-American community who seeked asylum during the Marcos regime. I have a lot of different immigrant families, probably like yours in Iran, who looked for asylum during the controversies and the tumult in Iran. And Trump, in his initial presidential election, wanted to ban Muslims from coming to America.
It was not a Muslim ban. It was not a travel ban. It was a travel.
You're right. It was Muslim shithole countries, which is what he said.
Just going off what he said.
Oh my gosh, this whole like moral relativist thing. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. Not all cultures are the same. And guess what? You know, if you allow anybody and their mother and brother to come into this country, you're gonna get a whole lot of bad culture. And I'll say that with a hard B, bad culture.
Are they whole countries? Is Haiti or Somalia?
Are you really going to classify?
I'm just asking.
The term third world is offensive to me, bro.
Everything's offensive to you, bro. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, we'd be hard pressed to find something that doesn't offend you.
Because you're talking about you're talking about a subhuman. You're talking about people who aren't as developed as we are, so they're the third world.
Countries
Give me a break. Some of these people.
Feelings. Nothing true. Nothing factual.
People have given you some of the biggest scientific innovations in the world.
So if you're stoning women after they've been raped,
in the Bible, bro, not now.
In the Bible, bro, not now. It is actively happening now. You just had a young teenage boy who was killed in the streets in the Middle East for listening to Western music in front of an entire crowd of people, killed brutally in front of everybody. You have women stoned for many things, including just like being raped or sexually assaulted. Oh my gosh. Let me calm down. Let me not talk about this whole thing. This moral relativist thing of like, oh, you know, all cultures are the same. They're not.
I'm from Iran, and it happens now.
I want to close the loop on Eric's point. Eric, what are you saying?
Also, didn't the Taliban just roll out rules about women being able to vocalize in public, being able to speak and sing for the fear that their voices are too sensual for the men around them? So not only are they covered up in full garb, whether that's their choice or it's not, they have to cover up. They are not able to utilize their voices and to sing. Are you kidding me? I mean, and you have women that are actively trying to fight against this every day, who don't want to wear the hijab, who want to be able to sing, who want to be able to vocalize, who want to protest their government, and they don't have the ability to do so for fear of losing their lives at the hand of the morality police. And you think that it's not okay to call that third world?
Saying that it's the U.S.'s responsibility to take people in who are seeking asylum.
I'm saying that Ronald Reagan said that the United States was a shining city on a hill, right? That's the basis of your guys' philosophy, right?
What are you saying?
I'm saying that this has been and has been forever a country of immigrants.
Why can't they stop at the other countries they stopped at to get here? That is my only point.
Why can't they just go back to where they came from? Is that what you're saying?
Let's go to Zion.
Okay, I'm going to start out with saying that immigration is not my biggest issue. It's not. I think people have a right to come to this country. I think our country was founded off of immigrants.
People do not have a right to come into this country. That has never existed ever. I don't know what you're talking about, that people just have the right to come into the country. And try moving to any other country. Attempt to go over and move to another country and see what their vetting process looks like. See the things that you have to bring to the table before being able to do so. Now, of course, that's changing in the West as we get so open-minded that our brains fall out and we open up the borders and allow everybody and their brother to move in. But these things are negatively impacting the countries that are opening up their borders and allowing these things to happen. And we can literally track it as this ideology becomes more and more strewn throughout the West.
Slaves, even, but if we want to actually talk about it, right, we can all agree that something at the end of the day does need to be done about immigration, whether it means it becomes more humane, whether it means we have a better vetting process, whether it means any of those things. But what you guys are failing to acknowledge is that the bipartisan bill was presented and they voted no, strictly, genuinely, because they didn't want to give Biden the W on that.
Negative. Okay, negative. Let's talk about this whole national security bipartisan bill thing that was passed through. That was not passed through, sorry. And this was about, 7-8 months ago that they brought forward this bill, and it was going to ramp up border protection. It was going to ramp up the number of border agents. It said, after, 4,000 people passing the border in a day, we're going to start clamping down on these things, which is already insane. But nonetheless, it spoke about expanding the wall and restarting construction at our border, amongst other things. There were a section of Republicans who did, and I tracked this, said, I'm not even going to read the bill. There's no way I'm supporting this. And that did happen. And some report that Trump said, we're going to not pass this bill. We're going to slam down this bill. For what reason? I'm not sure. Although they're going to say they just didn't want the Democrats to have a W on this one. Packaged in that bill was not just border security, this bipartisan national security bill. They also stuffed in over $100 billion to Ukraine and Israel. So as you can imagine, there's going to be a ton of people who disagree with these two things being packaged together and placed in the name of a national security as a bill right at their feet. So there's a lot more going on here than the tale that she proposes about this bill. And there was stuff in that bill that I didn't personally agree with. You even had Democrats who said they didn't support the billions of dollars that were going to be sent to Israel on the bill. So maybe you're not telling the full story. Just maybe.
And also, it's also worth mentioning that, like I said before, when Biden took over, he reversed a whole slate, like a half dozen policies that Trump had in place in securing the border, having to do with deportations and all sorts of things. And when you reverse those policies that were much more effective at keeping illegal immigrants from coming in, you create this issue. So for him to hide behind the fact that, we didn't get this bill passed, therefore I can't fix the problem. No, you created the problem in the first place when you took office. You could have easily reversed, or you could have easily just kept those policies in place and the problem would have been bad. And now you can fix it by reinstating those policies, which you have the authority to make. You don't need this bill. So the whole thing was kind of a red herring from the get-go, even regardless of what was in the content of the bill itself.
Right. It's crazy. You get into office, you create a problem, you put up a bill and say, we're trying to solve the problem, and then you blame them for not pushing forward the bill after you created the problem. Crazy.
That would be fine and all, cool, whatever, but this isn't a game. This isn't you don't get to play with people's lives and where they live and what they're escaping from. You don't know what
what are you talking about? I thought you wouldn't even support the bipartisan bill at all anyways, because you think everybody has a right to come in this country. So what are you even talking about? What are you defending at this point? Because you all seem to think that anybody should be able to enter the U.S. at any given moment. In fact, it's their right.
They're coming from. That ain't none of your business. Honestly, they don't owe you that. If they pass the paperwork and the test or whatever it is, they don't owe you an explanation on why they came here.
Negative. You most definitely owe the country of entry, the country you were trying to enter, an explanation as to why you were entering the country. For most of our existence, that has been the case. You have to let people know why you're coming into the country and for what purposes. And that's how we do our whole visa system, where if you said, I want to come into this country for this job in particular, and this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to contribute, they would hand you a visa where you could only work the job in question, the job that you came to the border and said, this is the one I'm here to do. So no way in hell do you just get to enter a country without telling them why you're there and what for.
So I think it's really funny when Democrats, Kamala Harris supporters bring this up, because when people bring it up, they bring it up as this like big gotcha, like, oh my gosh, and partly, you guys are right, like, okay, why would Republicans, go back on this? So I do understand that part, but my question is, why did it take them to election year, a few months or 6 months before the election, I believe it was 6 months before the election, now they want to put forth this bill.
Definitely
if the Biden administration and now Kamala Harris wants to be president, I think it's completely legitimate to say, you were in office since 2021, Biden and Kamala, that's when they came in office. You waited until 2024 to put together this Republican bill. And might I just add, since Democrats are moving on the right on immigration, does it mean that us Trump supporters were right all along?
If you want to talk about when we were in office, then why is it when Trump was in office in his first 2 years in office, when he had a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate, and he had been raging about the immigration bill, and Mexico was going to pay for the wall, remember? Why didn't he do it?
I've actively seen the wall. The difference between the wall that we had, which was not a wall. It's like a little baby fence, specifically at the border of California and Tijuana. Seen it, and I've seen the wall that Trump was constructing. So I don't know what he is referring to. And we all know that the construction of that wall was halted by who? You guys fill in the blank there. I don't know what this man is talking about, that he wasn't getting anything moving on the wall.
The only legislation that he passed was a huge tax cut for billionaires, and he made sure that people with mental illnesses could still get guns.
And when he was presented with
those are literally the only two legislations he's passed.
All right. I got to cut you off. Let's hear from Sheila.
So imagine the level of gaslighting that you've let in 60 million people already. They're here, and then you say, and we want a border solution now. They are already here. It has already happened, and now you're claiming to say you want to solve it. They're already here.
And how is it affecting you?
I will tell you.
And how is it affecting you is crazy after she just said, you are gaslighting me. How is it affecting you? I don't need to give you the list that I've already given you. You can just rewind. How is it affecting you is so insane. And it begs the question, like, what has to happen in this girl's life for her to recognize how big of a problem this actually is? And how is it that you cannot step out and see from a bird's eye perspective how detrimental this will be for our society and currently is for our society? It makes you so concerned about the American electorate. It makes you so concerned that these individuals are able to cast their votes, and they're so ardently defending a person who's creating one of the biggest problems in the West.
I am a taxpayer, and my taxpayer dollars, number one, are going to people who are not paying taxes and are not citizens and came here illegally. Okay, when you come here illegally, you have performed a crime. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I am a physician. I work at the county hospital. These people come literally with maps to come get free health care from the county hospital. They will walk across the border with a map to come get their health care and health services here. They have not contributed into that healthcare system with their taxes.
Why does someone have to contribute to receive healthcare?
Why does somebody have to contribute to receive healthcare? Average voter, you guys. Why does somebody have to contribute to receive healthcare?
It's not a disagreement of political beliefs. It's a disagreement of your morality. That is a disagreement of morality.
Do not question my morality.
I'm questioning it.
I'm questioning it.
Morality.
Time out. We cannot include parts where you're yelling over people. Your points will not be heard.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Mad respect.
Okay. You did good this one.
He's doing good. We appreciate it, John.
There's a lot of overlap.
Gotcha.
We're going to end this part.
Cool.
right, so I just wanted to make 3 points.
You're done.
The prompt was, agreeing with whether criminals and folks like that were let into the country, right? You all are identifying resource issues, right? And so it's one thing to talk about the folks that are being let in the country and the types and the backgrounds or whatnot. It's another thing to talk about the resources, right? And so to your point where you're saying, the school was taken over, et cetera, right? That's a valid point, and I think that we have to, make sure we have an immigration bill in place that allows for a pathway. And so whether it was the last 9 days of an administration or the first 9 days of the administration, if there's a bill on the table that adds those resources to make sure our border is secure and make sure we have 1,500 more border personnel on the border, then why would that not be the thing that at least solves the issue of securing our border?
We've already explained why that doesn't secure the border and other stuff that was packed into that bill that others disagreed with.
Right, we can talk about the resources and how we're going to do that, right? And how we're going to make sure we take care of people that are here, and if we're going to let more people in, right, how we're going to take care of those folks. But also, this administration isn't the first time where millions of illegal people crossed over the border. It's happened since the beginning of America, and it's
not at this rate, homegirl. It has not. And by the way, I saw somebody comment, why aren't we reacting to the 20 versus 1 with the woke student and the 20 Republicans? Don't worry. Stick around this week. We'll be reacting to that because everybody seems to think Dean ate them up and all that stuff. Yeah, I should have been there. Is what I'm realizing. I should have been there. So don't worry. Dean will get his hand this week.
Continuing to happen because when there's an opportunity to pass something that will work, no one wants to do it because it becomes political instead of actually solving an issue.
So I have something just to bounce off of that. You and her are both correct with everything that you both said, and I completely agree. The issue is, it's like opening the door, letting a bunch of people in, then shutting it and going, hey guys, we don't have enough resources for this. Where do we get the money to do it? And we're all just supposed to be taxed to all hell until everything gets paid for. And that's my biggest issue as I'm not making millions of dollars every day. You know what I mean? I'm not a millionaire. I do private security contracting, and I work for the rich people, and I go in with MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, all these news agencies to these protests where all these issues are happening and nothing's being done. Anything that gets shown that could be crazy or wild to see on the news, certain news agencies aren't going to show you. So if I'm seeing this stuff in person and then I start seeing everything else online on YouTube, Fox News, whatever, CNN, doesn't matter, all I'm seeing is what they're showing me, because I can't just go to every single state, and go to the border, but I'm seeing actual Venezuelans, actual Haitian people, actual Somalians over in Greeley, Colorado, taking over every single job, and they're getting hired through these temp agencies that won't allow them to work full time, which is horrible for them specifically. That's not fair to anybody that came here thinking they're going to get a job and make American money. That's not fair to them, and it's not fair to the American people and the legal immigrants that came here that they can't get those jobs because now it's just taken over by temps.
Nothing more to say there.
Next prompt is, my candidate has contradicted themselves.
Yeah, of course. I mean, over the course of anybody's political career or just being a human being, I think you're going to contradict yourself. I think Trump has given very different stances on abortion. He was quite hard to pin down on his answer about abortion in the most recent debate that we watched, and kept saying, it's down to the states, which of course valid. It is now a state's issue, so he shouldn't really have to put out so much of a hard stance on that. He's flip-flopped in his political affiliation. Used to be a Democrat, is now a Republican. There's so many different things that it depends on what you mean by is it a contradiction, or has somebody changed their opinion on it? And I guess we'll hear their examples of things that they've seen. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris contradicted herself days apart, hours apart with the things that she said during the debate. So that might be a little different.
Yeah, I'm very critical of Kamala Harris. I honestly don't think she's going to be the best president. I view voting as very harm reductive. So when it comes down to who's going to be in office, it's going to be Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And I think that my goals are much easier to organize with the Kamala Harris presidency than a Donald Trump. So Kamala Harris, one of my biggest criticisms of her is she ran on many progressive platforms, especially early on in her presidential campaign in 2020 during the primaries. She has not stuck to many of those. She's actually gone to the right on a lot of those issues. She's trying to appeal to Republicans. She's entered Dick Cheney into our camp of support. These are people that I abhor,
These are people that I don't think should have the respect of progressives, and she's trying to rally us all in against Donald Trump.
I really am happy that you did mention that, because the media portrays it like, yeah, we have more Republicans on our side, Republicans who are supporting Democrats, but you're like, wait, these aren't the kind of Republicans I would like to be on our side. So I do think that's kind of nice not to just kind of have that like clickbait, oh, look, you know, like a token.
Same on both sides.
Same on both sides.
Well, I'll clarify, I don't want any Republicans on my side, I'm being honest. So,
Seriously, like, y'all can keep Dick Cheney. Keep Dick Cheney over.
This is such like, you don't want any Republicans on your side. It's just not, it's very mature, in my opinion.
But here, please keep him.
I feel like he definitely has his way, and I feel like we can go back and everybody has said one thing that they've changed now, you know, and they obviously they're just like people like us. They're going to change and evolve, and their views and based on the life experiences, at least from what this country or what they go through, they're going to change. And I'm sure you can go back and you can look at things that he said that he has completely changed his stance on now. Like almost every single politician, Republican and Democrat, have said, you know, homophobic or racist things. Every single one.
Not every single one, babe.
I think
a lot of them. Maybe not every single one, but a lot of them. Also, my crazy opinions is in the chat. He super chat. It says, "Hi guys, I'm the guy with the red Trump helmet. Hopefully you liked my performance. So far, so good."
Well, it's Osiris, right? Thanks for being here.
Yeah,
man.
thanks. Thanks so much.
the biggest one obviously is going to be abortion. Because for me, it's kind of like I am pro-life, but I do respect people's ability to have it done themselves. I've always said if they want to have an abortion, let them do it. I am pro-life for myself and for my family, or I am conservative values and principles. So first, to kind of being like, I'm going to appoint Supreme Court justices to redo Roe v. Wade or send it back to the states. And then to do this flip of, I think he was interviewed about the heartbeat bill. And first he was kind of like, no, that's not long enough. And then the next day he said, wait, no, I agree with the 6 weeks, because the Republicans got mad that he went back on what he said about abortion. So it is kind of annoying.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
I don't believe Kamala has contradicted herself.
I mean, they both have. I don't know how you could not step forward for that one. That's a little questionable.
Principles have remained the same. She has always said secure borders, legal pathways to immigration. She's always said pro-choice. She's always, been consistent with her opportunity economy, where we build the middle class. And so
she contradicted herself on fracking. She contradicted herself on racial unity in the United States. She contradicted herself on an assault weapons ban by saying, I don't want to take anyone's guns. In fact, I'm a gun owner myself. She did it recently on Oprah, where it was very different from what she said in the debate. She said, if somebody comes into my house, they're getting shot. And then went on to talk about an assault weapons ban. So there's just so many different contradictions that this woman has ushered forward. I don't know how you could reasonably not walk forward for that question, even if you're still going to go on to support her. And the same for Donald Trump.
I mean, I think that if anything, if her policies are different, then that's an evolution, right? Like, it's an evolution of the times that we're in. It's an evolution of changing circumstances. It's an evolution of changing demographics and what people want and need and all of that stuff. But as far as her principles and her platform, it's remained the same.
I feel the same way. I think that, when you hire a CEO for a company, and let's think of America as a major company, the company has different needs at different times. That's why sometimes you bring in different CEOs, because of their strengths or their connections or their ability to make change in a certain sector. And so I believe that, America is a growing organism and is like a human in that sense, or a company in that sense, and it's going to require different decisions at different times. And so that's why I think that, you have to be flexible. As a business owner, I certainly have to be flexible, and so I think our Commander-in-Chief also has to be flexible.
What are your thoughts on Dick Cheney joining the tent?
Look, everyone that wants to come to the Democrats, we welcome you all, right? We need the votes.
For sure.
In order for us to really make the democracy work, where there are two sides, right? I think that both sides have to be able to understand compromise. You have to be able to work together with people that maybe you don't agree on abortion, but you agree on immigration. Maybe you don't.
Completely agree. And this is something that the left has lost a long time ago. And there are Republicans who do this as well, where they just won't accept anybody who has a past that they disagree with, or who has a present stance on a current topic that they disagree with. And it makes no sense. If somebody wants to give you your support, take the support, and you can still go contend with the issues upon which you disagree with them. But that doesn't mean you don't need to add them to the club if they want to be part.
Don't agree on whatever, child tax credits, but you do agree on, make sure we support our veterans. I think that's perfectly fine. I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. If we can agree on an issue, let's move it forward.
Just going off of the debate that they just had, she said, I own guns, Walz owns guns, we're not going to take your guns.
I never knew that.
No, right, but 10 minutes later, not actually 10 minutes later, but a couple days later, she does an interview where she's like, we're not going to take your guns. but weapons of war, we're going to take those. What's a weapon of war would be my main thing. Those are the things that affect me as a gun owner. Sure. I love being able to have the option to protect my family. If that's taken away and now I have to just run outside of my house if somebody breaks in, like, what are people, I feel so bad for people that live in California with the way that things are just criminal-wise, with people breaking into homes, stealing stuff. That should not be allowed. You should be able to defend yourself.
And
if
really
that,
want to respond to this.
If that was taken away, I don't know what I would do. I would definitely bury my stuff in a basement like John Wick, but like.
So when it comes down to the whole gun thing, I think everybody needs to just start being for real. As a person that
be so for real right now. She's saying be so for real.
Still your line.
Let's hear it.
Grew up in deep down south in Louisiana. If you're talking about protecting your family, who is this group of people that is coming and knocking and banging down y'all's? What are you doing to bring that in your life?
What are you doing to bring the criminals to your door? Well, how are you inviting that energy into your life? I would love to have her say that to victims of crime here in my state of California or any other area that is experiencing a rising crime right now. These smash and grab robberies, these burglaries, the looting, all of these different things that are taking place, which I've witnessed with my own eyes living here in the state of California, going on ride-alongs with police officers, the havoc that these people are, reaping on all these different neighborhoods is just absolutely insane. But what are you doing to invite that sort of energy? What are you doing to invite the criminals to your door? What an interesting question.
I was guilty of the great offense of living in Hollywood in 2020 when the COVID riots or when the BLM riots were happening. And literally across the street from my apartment, I watched as dozens of people looted a shoe store, an off-Broadway shoe store, multiple times over the course of a couple of nights and set it on fire. And so the idea that like what did I do to put myself in that much proximity to violence and danger? I'm not sure. I also, in my Santa Monica apartment, I happened to move down to Santa Monica that same year. And later that summer, I had homeless people fighting and screaming at each other right outside my bedroom window in Santa Monica, which was supposed to be a nice place. But because I committed the great error and sin of deciding to live in Santa Monica, I was subject to that danger being that close outside my apartment. So I'm not sure if her statement holds water.
It's all your fault, Taylor. You invited it. You manifested that, I think.
And B, if you didn't need the AR-15, and this, you're talking to a veteran, okay? I didn't really need to walk around with an AR, a veteran who built bombs. I didn't need to walk around with a doggone machine gun 24/7 to protect all of us. Like, it wasn't necessary.
Not a machine gun, but also, like, okay, you're a veteran who built bombs and you didn't have an AR-15 strapped to your chest while you were doing it. Okay, I wonder at the facility or where you were stationed, what that place is being defended by. I would love her to answer that question. Although she didn't have an AR strapped to her chest, what was your station being defended by? Considering she's saying she helped build bombs, I imagine that's under very extreme security, and I wonder what that security entails.
It wasn't needed, and I did, most importantly, did not need to bring that home to feel like my house is protected. I'm not saying no guns, that we should take all guns. I feel like we can all agree at this point something has to change and something has to be done.
Just the way they regulate cars.
I was totally with you prior to COVID. I was like, why do we need assault rifles? Why do we need, machine guns? I was totally with you. And then when COVID happened, I realized that the progressives don't stop. First they said 6 feet apart. We said fine. Then they said wear a mask, and we said fine. Then they said take the kids out of school, and we were like, Then they said vaccine, we were like fine. Then they said another vaccine, we said fine. Then they said booster.
3 masks.
So the point is, my question to you on that, and the reason why I changed, is let's say the anti-gun lobby gets a win. Let's say they take away the assault rifles. Do you think that they will fully dissolve and say, okay, all other guns are fine? Or do you think that they're going to go after the next gun and the next gun until there's no more guns in it?
It's a valid question. And I think about this all the time. When I hear about school shootings or victims of any sort of violence, not even just mass violence, which is something we focus on, even though a lot of the gun crimes that are happening with handguns and things like that, nothing to do with AR-15s. I'm always thinking, like, does banning these weapons truly do something? If we get rid of AR-15s, is a school shooter going to resort to another weapon? And I'm logically, I'm thinking, yeah, they're just going to move on to the next thing that's capable of inflicting harm upon people. Not to mention that guns are not only about like protection and protecting your home and all these different things. There's a whole slew of other reasons why America is the civilization of the Second Amendment, not to mention, like government tyranny, the fact that it wards off people invading our country because a lot of us are gun owners, and behind every blade of grass is an American citizen who owns a gun. These are things that I think about, and I want this issue to be solved. And I think it is often pushed the narrative that if you're a Republican and you support the Second Amendment, you don't care that people are dying, or you don't want something to be done about this issue. Wholeheartedly want something to be done about this issue. And if it could be proven that getting rid of these weapons is actually going to do something about the issue, I would love to hear that argument, and I would love to, see if that's something that's actually plausible. Right now, I'm not convinced that it's going to lead to the outcomes that they're saying it is. And I wish we could do like a trial run and see if anything happens. But unfortunately, the trial run gives so much power to the government that is ever expanding and never getting rid of any of the departments or the sanctions or the different laws that they're placing on us, that I don't feel comfortable right now allowing the government to make that choice on our behalf. So what we really need to focus on is sowing a seed of trust within the government, rather than the mistrust that so many of us feel in government overreach. So we should talk about that in relation to this issue. Okay.
Yeah. And I think also Sheila was getting at what I think is the stronger argument for gun rights, which is that ultimately gun rights are there to protect you, not necessarily just to protect your home or to against foreign invaders, but to protect you from your own government and its overreach when the tyranny comes too strong. So she was talking about how the increase in COVID regulations, and that might sound crazy or like, that's far-fetched, but look at what's happened in other countries. Look what happened in Maoist China. Look what happened in Nazi Germany. One of the first things they did is disarm the citizenry. And when you have no recourse against a tyrannical government that just decides they want to do whatever they want to do with you, then you have no check against that, being living in totalitarianism. And people, we just don't, that doesn't connect with Americans, but it's because we take for granted that, we just have freedom because we're free. But that freedom comes at something, kind of like you said before, like to the girl who builds bombs. What is that facility being protected by? What is your freedom being protected by? It's protected by men and women of our armed forces who have fought for that freedom over the years, but it's also protected by that Second Amendment right to defend yourself against a government that is overreaching into your life.
Yep, and it's not to sound like conspiratorial or crazy or say the government's coming for you. It's just a reason behind the Second Amendment. Sorry.
I think we are talking about the same consistent gun being brought to schools and causing mass destruction. I don't think they're talking about stripping and taking away all of you guys' guns. I'm just saying that they're proposing something needs to be done. And if you didn't need, we're not walking around with people chasing us down. I don't know, even in the hood. I don't know what y'all I grew up in Shreveport. Still didn't need a machine gun to walk around in. And I'm talking about that has one of the highest murder capitals in the country. You do not need a machine gun, an automatic rifle.
I think
they're not automatic rifles. They're semi-automatic, at least in the case of what we're seeing, particularly with mass shootings. And I do often ask myself the question, why is it always the AR-15? It really makes sense. It's a weird thing that it seems to be this specific type of rifle being used in mass shootings and in school shootings. And I don't know, it's because maybe these shootings are so publicized that people are influenced by these shooters who do it before them, and they want to sort of emulate what they're doing so they get the same weapon. But I don't think enough people understand that an AR-15 versus a semi-automatic handgun, it's not that different. I mean, as fast as you can pull the trigger is as fast as that gun is going to shoot. And there are many things that you can bring with you with a handgun that allows you to have more rounds and continue shooting. So I just don't know that getting rid of an AR-15 or banning AR-15s is going to stop the problem when you have guns out there of similar regulatory status and of similar, damage available out there on the market. I don't know. But the fact that she's a veteran in the military and she's referring to them as automatic machine guns, concerning. I mean, I'm questioning your knowledge on the issue, and maybe you really didn't have a gun on you while you were building these bombs because you don't know much about the features of these firearms in the first place. So I don't know about her story or what she's saying or what basic training looked like for her, but it didn't seem to involve a lot of gun education. And I say this as somebody with very little gun education, very, very minuscule amount. So I don't know what's going on there.
We're getting caught up on specific
You
gun
don't.
types.
You've never needed it before. Let's be for real.
Okay, so we gotta put a pin in it because we're chasing specific issues. I want to ask these are not talking questions. These are just raise your hand. So on this side.
Okay.
I know it's hard. Who here would be in support? The government should get involved with taking guns, certain guns, away from citizens. Raise your hand.
Is this gun regulation or is this like actually removing it from house?
Let's just say you're in support of some policy that would remove at least some guns from the possession of citizens. Raise your hand.
I mean, I guess I would kind of like raise my hand on that. Like when you're looking at these sort of mass shootings that take place, a lot of these kids are on FBI watch lists and somehow like the parents or family members are still able to get guns. I don't know that I'm necessarily in support of that. And maybe we need to add some more regulations on, hey, if you're on a watch list, I'm so sorry. Like I know it's your kid and it's not you, but maybe we can't have firearms in this household, or there needs to be some sort of regulation in that sense. And that would require taking away firearms from certain households and from certain people. So I guess I would raise my hand for that, but it's a big umbrella question he just asked that is hard to answer.
As a veteran, though?
Yes, because it's common sense.
I was deployed in Afghanistan.
All right, our next prompt. Harris doesn't understand the economy as well as Trump. Will our agreeers step forward?
Harris doesn't understand the economy as well as...
For me, at least.
I mean, I guess I'll walk forward for that. I mean, under this administration, record inflation. They say they're working on that. She says something I support. She's going to go after price gouging. I don't know how much price gouging has to do with the economic problems that we're all experiencing right now. And anybody who's willing to funnel in millions of illegal immigrants into our country, I don't know that you do understand. I don't know.
I'm obviously probably a lot younger than the people on the show, but for me, the way that I see the economy going from the 4 years that she's been in office with Biden to the 4 years that Trump has been in office. You know, I saw, at least with my family and the people around me, the economy prospered a lot more. You know, people my age have to wait on going to school because they have to work 2 jobs for 3 years to build that money back because the way the state and the economy was in, their parents had to use their college fund over these past 4 years to keep afloat. And we didn't see that with Trump. You know, people were getting wealthier and people were benefiting more. And I just don't feel that she's really seeing those issues.
And you attribute this to the Biden Harris administration?
Absolutely, because it's happened the past 4 years. My sister had to drop out of school due to the fact that it was just to this like influx of money and inflation and everything and all the costs that it brings. There's just no scholarships aren't scholarships anymore.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
I disagree in the sense that we underestimate Kamala Harris way too much. And I think that the prompt, the question is like, she doesn't understand. Oh, she fully understands. And I think that the problem is us underestimating, because she understands that prices were lower with Trump. She understands that the grocery prices and food, going to McDonald's. I went to McDonald's one day, the next day I'm like, wait, a Big Mac wasn't this much under Trump. Like, what's going on, right? I think she understands these things and that the American people are suffering. And she understands it to the point to where, she took one of his policies, that no tax on tips. She does what she does. She tells people what they want to hear. Like the flattery language, it's going to be so much nice and the money we're going to give you. But she knows exactly what she's doing.
Okay, so some of the things that you guys touched on, just about the state of the economy that was inherited when Kamala and Biden took over in office. I think we have to remember that they got a messed up economy. I think inflation went up.
I think this is going to be a big part of the arguments all over the place. I feel like when something good happens during an administration, they'll say, during the Trump administration, they'll say, well, you inherited that from Obama. When something bad happens in their administration, we inherited that from Trump. But if Trump does something like good during his administration, they'll say, well, you inherited that good thing from Obama. And then the very same, back and forth. So I don't know. To be honest, the economy is not something I feel like I have a super deep knowledge in. I just see what I see as an American citizen and what has changed. And I listen to what these politicians are saying and what they're actively working on. And that paints a picture for me. I mean, we're talking record rates of inflation. We're outsourcing American jobs. They claim to be wanting to bring those back. Trump was actively doing that. The pipelines that were being set up here that this current administration decided, no, we're going to stop that. There's so many different things that were taking place under the Trump administration. At at the order of Donald Trump that were rolled over or rolled back.
9.1% when he first came into office. And that's because every 4 years, you know, you're going to see the fallout from the next election, the next president. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So what they received was due to what Trump did. What Trump is getting praising for, what you guys are praising for, the Obama administration set the playing ground for that. Like, that's how it works. You only see the fallout from it once the next person is in office a lot of times, because it takes a couple years.
But she's not pointing to anything specific. I would love to hear specifics as to what she's referencing.
Times to see the results.
Real quick, I want to talk about the tax on tips because that's something that I don't agree with. I didn't agree when Donald Trump proposed it, and I didn't agree when Kamala Harris supported it. Again, I'm somebody who's in favor of the working class, but taking taxes off tips is, again, something that is sold as a very good idea, but it doesn't actually help the people that it's propagated to help. Mm-hmm. And that's mostly because people who work wages where they require tips don't even meet the threshold to actually pay federal income taxes. So a lot of the times it's used to justify corporations or large businesses or even small businesses from exploiting workers that aren't being paid a living wage. They're actually relying on the generosity of customers that come in. Mm-hmm. And it's a policy that's meant to justify or make that system continue to happen.
I'd not heard that. I'd have to look into exactly what he's explaining there, but I see his perspective on the no tax on tips thing. Interesting.
I'm talking back on the Trump economy. I don't think that the Trump economy was necessarily bad. I wouldn't say that that's because of the actions of Donald Trump. Within 10 days of him being inaugurated, the right was so excited to announce that the Dow Jones Act increased. All of the economists across the country were praising the state of the economy. It's not because of somebody who just got inaugurated 10 days ago. It's because of the economy that Donald Trump inherited.
And please forgive me, but someone who's been bankrupted 6 times, bankrupted casinos. Do you know how inept you have to be to bankrupt a casino? It's literally
kind of like a moot point. There's like a ton of extremely rich individuals who are very successful, and there's bankruptcies littered throughout their past and all these different things. I don't know exactly what you're trying to substantiate with that point.
Here, take my money. And he bankrupted multiple casinos, bankrupted the entirety of Atlantic City. Also, $25 million settled lawsuit for Trump University. Also, 34 felony charges, convicted on fraud.
Lawfare. Sorry.
And can't do business in New York for 3 years, and you're gonna tell me I'm gonna trust this dude with some business?
Can I just respond to your point? I think earlier you brought up a really good point when you were talking about like students now not being able to afford to school and working, right? And I think that is a concern that whoever the president's going to be has to address. Right. But what I will say about the Biden administration is he's doing things to help my generation. For us, it wasn't a barrier to get to school. It's once we got our schooling, being able to now pay back the student loans. And so Biden is answering that, right? And so
is he answering that? Because nothing's moved. He's spoken about it a lot, and then nothing happened, which kind of makes me feel like it's a running point to get you guys to rally behind him, and then nothing happens.
So I think she's VP to Biden. She understands those issues. I think I would trust her more to figure out how we're going to support students that have to work all these jobs before they can even get to school. But she's paying attention. But at least we know that she was in an administration that paid attention to those concerns.
At least she was in an administration that talked about it. As long as you talk about it, I feel like you're working on the issue.
They promised to pay for my gender studies degree, so at least they did that.
Exactly, which they shouldn't
be
doing.
With other taxpayers' money.
They shouldn't be doing it anyways, but yeah, at least they talked about it.
No. Okay, let's reset. Trump is more extreme to the right than Kamala is to the left.
Of course not. Trump is not more extreme to the right. If anything, he's really given a lot of movements to the left on a lot of things, including his discussion about abortion, which I wonder if that's going to be brought up. Meanwhile, like Harris was she was found to be the most progressive senator, and they did a comprehensive look at all the senators. She was voted the most progressive senator.
More than Bernie.
Yep, more than Bernie, which is really saying something. And now she's trying to like sound more moderate in her public appearances while supporting very extreme left policy and rhetoric. So,
agree or step forward.
It's the one thing that I wanted to say in this debate because in 2016 she was rumored to be very hardcore against cannabis. And when in fact I did my research, I found out that she was only convicted 45 people. You know,
Let's fact check. Let's see. While VP Harris was San Francisco DA, her office actually convicted 1,956 felony and misdemeanor marijuana charges, which is very different. And it's very different from 45, but 45 people convicted were sentenced to state prison.
She was demonized on her views of cannabis. And for me, that's a big issue because it's my medicine.
Do you see her as far left, though?
I see her not left enough on that issue.
Got it.
Like, for me...
On that issue. What about everything else?
Descheduling is the way to go. It's not rescheduling, it's decriminalizing and descheduling because it's a plant.
We can smoke afterwards then.
Nice!
Just joking.
I want to move away from cannabis and go back to like the political spectrum and landscape. I think that Kamala Harris definitely could be a lot more progressive in areas where originally she might have been. The biggest criticisms from progressives, right, is her role as a DA and as an attorney general. So there were a lot of people that were incarcerated under his administration. I don't know why people pretend like San Francisco was a rehabilitative justice city when it was very retributive under the Kamala Harris run under there. But when it comes to Donald Trump, like, sure, you could say a lot of his policies are not as far right as maybe some of his peers, like a Ted Cruz or like the Heritage Foundation.
Or J.D. Vance.
He has like completely dismissed Project 2025 multiple times. Does that mean that he won't actually enact a lot of those policies? Who knows? We'll see if he does get reelected. But
I appreciate him saying that he has denounced it and he does not stand by it. You know, the caveat after, whatever.
I think his rhetoric specifically is very far right. And that's when we see things like immigrants are poisoning the blood of this country, when he's saying things like they're bringing in rapists, they're bringing in terrorists.
Nothing about that is far right. But hey, we've already talked about immigration. You don't need to hear me go off on that again.
That type of language has a very strong byproduct when it comes to how those communities are treated in different states.
We're eating dogs now, apparently.
And I think, too, just like his prioritization of a white nationalist group, he might not say that entire thing, but when...
What about that as white nationalist? What about that? And there's nothing about him that screams white nationalism. It screams pro-American.
You're inviting people like Nick Fuentes to the White House when you are hosting white nationalists and making it a comfortable space for them, that has really detrimental effects, especially on the communities that those seem to target. And I'm not saying every Trump supporter is a white nationalist or these people are super racist, but Trump definitely capitulates to those groups. And that's something that is very, very extremely right.
Trump, dude, I need to think about this. I don't know if we have a registry somewhere of how many white nationalists actually exist within the United States. How big is the population of people who are white nationalists or neo-Nazis? It can't be that large. So what do you mean he's like capitulating to this voter base? It can't be but a drop in the bucket for American citizens of people who identify as white nationalists.
Trump is certainly more extreme. I mean, he doesn't have policies, right? He has rhetoric. He has, you know, his just being, you know, this huge voice that loves the rallies, that loves the attention, but he's not putting forth policies. He's only speaking to those people that you know hate other groups, that are trying to make America great again, whatever the heck that's supposed to mean. He's not giving policy that's advancing the country. He's speaking to groups of folks that honestly I think want to return us back to slavery, or at least that time period, right? That's an extreme view.
How are you supposed to even respond to that? People who want to return us back to slavery or that time period, just be so for real right now. There's just nothing to say to something that's saying something that radical.
No, I was even kind of tracking with what she's saying, that, like, you know what, Trump could do a better job leading with his policies and less so on the imprecise rhetoric that is trying to convey the importance of certain issues, but doing so in a way that doesn't really connect, like we saw in the debate. And honestly, Trump's policies are actually pretty good. As somebody who didn't support him in the primary, I could say he was actually an effective president and a good president policy-wise, but I don't think he's been a great political candidate because of the rhetoric. So I agree with what she was saying up until she said Trump and his supporters want us to bring back slavery. Not sure that one hits the same.
Yeah, a little too much there.
I mean, it's to summarize it completely, right? Not every Trump supporter is a white nationalist, but every white nationalist is a Trump supporter.
And also, Andrew Gillum said it best. He may not be a racist, but the racists think he's a racist.
Dude, it's just like saying, not every Kamala Harris supporter is Antifa, but every Antifa member supports Kamala Harris. Or just like put in any other extreme group that exists on the left and then insert the candidate that they support. It's not an argument. It's simply not an argument. There are extreme and radical people on every end of the spectrum and extreme radical people who sit in the middle and don't vote at all. So what is your point? I don't know what you're trying to say.
Not every would-be presidential assassin is a Democrat.
Right.
Well, it's silly.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
Okay, so I love this topic because this was actually one of the first things that made me start thinking differently. I remember in school, my professor, my teacher, whatever, was going crazy about Trump being so evil and so racist, and he hates black people. And I remember I was kind of like, okay, I'm supposed to be a Democrat, and I raised my hand and I asked, okay, if Trump is so racist, why did he put forth the First Step Act, which let thousands upon thousands of black men out of prison? Most of these black men were in jail for petty drug crimes. And under Trump, obviously it was bipartisan. He worked with Democrats. He reached across the aisle to make sure that this happened. So the First Step Act was gigantic when it came to criminal justice reform. Compare that to Kamala Harris, who put an innocent black man in prison. His name is Jamal Truelove. No one talks about it. He was in prison for 7 years, and he was on an interview with Vice News. And in that interview, he said, Kamala came to my sentencing and she acted like it was a celebration that I got convicted because she just wanted somebody to throw in jail. And someone mentioned slavery and he wants to take us back to slavery. But I believe in 2011.
And then the fact check says it was reported that she needed to have a tough on crime posture to run for California Attorney General, and this case helped her do that.
The courts came forward to tell Kamala Harris that the prisons in California are overcrowded, specifically in San Francisco. But Kamala wanted those people to stay in prison so that they can be used as cheap labor to put out the California wildfires.
Did she not go back and speak on that and apologize and correct her mistake and say that? She admitted the way we went about that was maybe not the correct way. But that you are trying to focus in on the most on a minuscule part.
A minuscule part. How is that minuscule in any way, shape, or form? But as long as she apologized, right? And of course, you're going to find things in both of these candidates' past that don't look so good, especially if we're going to focus on the subject matter of race. Trump had this whole suit about discriminating against black people who wanted to stay in his different facilities and the places that he owned, and there's a whole back and forth on that. And then there's other evidence to substantiate that Trump is in no way racist. We're going to all talk about how these different candidates make us feel and the different evidence that supports our claims about them, and we'll get into that more here.
Of her character, you're trying to paint her out to be this person that is the complete opposite of what she showed us to be, and
then they could argue you're doing the same about Trump. So where do we want to continue with this conversation?
I don't know. We're talking about somebody that at least had tried to do prison reform versus somebody that believed 5 little innocent black boys deserved to be put on death row.
Except he just gave you evidence to prison reform that Trump actually brought forth and passed that allowed tons of black inmates to get out of prison through his program. And now you're going to hark on the Central Park 5 in the same way that this guy's going to hark on True Love. So it's about where we are as candidates now. I don't think Trump is a racist individual. We could also point to the fact that Trump had Mar-a-Lago in West Palm Beach at a time where black people and Jewish people were not allowed to stay in these areas and in these clubs. What did Trump do? He actually sent copies of movies about anti-Semitism and racism towards black people to the city leaders and said, guess what? I'm allowing black people and Jewish people into Mar-a-Lago. I don't care what all the other clubs do. They're allowed in my space. So we can throw back evidence back and forth as to whether or not these individuals are racist. And then what are you going to do with it? You're going to vote for who you're going to vote for. I'm going to vote for who I'm going to vote for.
Okay, so at the time, if you were in the 1990s, crime was very high, higher than what it is right now. And obviously, if you were listening to the fact that 5 people brutally raped a woman, and she couldn't even testify because she was so bloodied and bruised. She couldn't even show up in court to say, these are the people who did it. So obviously back then, we don't have cell phones, we don't have Google or iPhones or none of that. And you're like, man, that's crazy. I can't believe
it doesn't mention race in it either.
It doesn't mention race. The only thing he knew that these were 5 people who raped and brutalized someone, and they confessed to it. I know later they were exonerated, but they confessed.
Do you not understand how the
beginning,
industrial prison system works?
They were literally coerced.
You, out of all
I agree.
people,
Just no nuance. No nuance.
other than me and her,
Listen,
as sitting in this panel,
agree
should
with you.
absolutely know what goes on when we go in those interrogations.
Oh, so let's pull the black card. Only me and her, and maybe you, even though you're a Republican and you're black. So maybe not you. Only we know about the experience of people within the prison industrial complex.
Come up.
One second. I have
We gotta close the loop. We've heard a lot about race. Something that came up in the first half of this that I want to hear this side respond to is I've heard the claim that not all Trump supporters are racist, but all racists are Trump supporters.
Oh, I'd like to respond to that.
Yeah, let's.
Okay, so would you also agree that all Hamas supporters are Democrats?
No,
There you go.
I don't think so.
I don't care.
Not at all.
That's different.
Are the Republicans?
I'd love to talk about the
They're
genocide.
Republicans.
If we could keep talking about
Please
the
talk
genocide.
about it.
Please just a relation.
Or like Taylor said, you know, all the people that tried to assassinate a president in the past year have been what?
Flags. Are the Republicans
Sheila,
burning the
respectfully
flags?
though, I would
Respectfully,
say.
you want to
They
do the
have more
whataboutism, we
conservative
can do that.
views. I mean,
Yeah.
Quiet. Respectfully, that's not an answer to this.
It is an answer. I have to say that. It is an answer because she's giving an equivalent example to them to show the lunacy of what they're saying.
Claim.
Correct.
I want to hear a response to their claim that all racists support Trump.
Let's say each side has their extremists. Would we agree to that? And each side is not proud of their extremists.
How is he shaking his head and saying that their side does not have extremists? I mean, like that, you'd have to be blind to not recognize that your side also has extremists.
Would we agree to that?
I don't think extremists would identify as Democrats, where
Correct.
white nationalists would identify.
We're talking
as
about white
Republicans.
supremacy.
Please.
We're talking about KKK.
Okay, let's talk about the KKK. So in 2018, how many members were there in the KKK? How many members are in the KKK?
Why would it
don't
matter?
know. I
Because
don't
it
study
still
the
exists.
KKK.
One is too many.
No,
Are you
Too
okay?
many.
Listen,
But you study
Apparently
them
you
enough
do.
to know who they are and what political affiliation they have. Yeah, apparently you do study the KKK.
What's the larger point?
screaming doesn't help.
Oh,
So the
Christ.
larger
Oh my
point
God.
is there's 5,000 members in 2018 in the KKK with their little tiki torches marching around town doing their thing. Now, the greater threat to me, again, somebody who escaped socialism, is the Socialist Democrats of America, who are well-funded, who are backing the AOCs and the Ilhan Omars, and who are passing legislation in this country.
That's
So
a
to
bigger
me,
threat for you?
That is a bigger threat to me.
Of course. Of course.
So with the
Absolutely.
KKK
Walk around and
threatening
ask
with
it. Walk
them,
around and
Joe
lynching.
Biden eulogized KKK member Robert Byrd, and Hillary Clinton was also present at his funeral. So there is that. If we're gonna, which again, I don't attribute racism to Joe Biden because of that. But if we're looking for facts that support these narratives, I mean, that's irrelevant facts. So by your own logic, he should be considered a racist. But because he's a Democrat, you're blind to that, which just exposes you're two-faced on this.
Yep. And well, what party founded the KKK? Sorry.
I don't know.
Really, in your real life?
Me
you
too.
really-
Yes, I'm from Louisiana.
Real quick, show of hands. Who wants to acknowledge that there are extreme people in their party that they're not proud of? Raise your hand.
The conservative Democrats.
Absolutely.
Wow. And they won't raise their hands for that. It is so.
Did you hear him just mumble the conservative Democrats?
Yep.
That's wild.
So telling. Not a single person on their side, even though one of them has their hand raised, is actually giving an example of extremists on their side.
And
Insane.
2020 wasn't that long ago when the country was on fire and dozens of people died from the extremist BLM riots, or Chaz. People
Insane.
died in the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone that was founded by radical leftists in, what was that, Seattle?
Yep. Absolutely.
How short our memories are. Selective.
Crazy.
Yeah, conservative Democrats.
No. In your party.
No.
There's
So you're saying Dick
Joe
there's no
Manchin.
crazy people on the
Cheney's a
left or
Republican.
the
No,
right.
Yeah, Dick
but
Cheney's a Republican.
I feel like that's
There are crazy people on the left, they're not
I feel like
Democrats.
that's a disingenuous answer. What I'm asking is, raise your hand if you take ownership that there are people further than
Thank you, John, for calling that out as a disingenuous answer.
you on your side of the political spectrum that you're not proud of in your party.
There's extremes on both sides, for sure.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
A little hand wave
Okay.
to not even recognize. Crazy.
Did he just say there's
All right,
very
our
fine
next
people
prompt
on
is-
both sides?
Is there are policies on the other side that I agree with. Agree or
Policies on
step
the
forward?
other side that I agree with. I guess I'd step forward. What did she say? She said she wanted to go after price gouging at the debate when talking about the economy. I support that. I can stand walk forward for that, or Harris is one example.
I certainly don't agree that guns should be taken. Not that any Democrat has ever said that, but I think that's sort of like
Not that any Democrat has ever said that guns need to be taken. Nuts.
Republicans think, and I don't believe on it, and I don't think most Democrats believe we are taking guns or even completely banning all guns, because there are security issues, or it's being able to use them and recreationally, et cetera. So I don't believe in that, and again, I don't think Democrats are saying that, but that's what we're portrayed as.
I agree with what the Biden administration, that they put in the PACT Act. I think that's great for veterans. That's my main shtick, is we need to do more for vets. There's not enough stuff being done for veterans that needs to be done, and at some point we need to hit the pause button and say, screw everybody else, we need to fix America. We need to lock the doors, figure everything out, get everybody up and ready, and then start opening the doors, letting people in. But
I heard that Biden was really good with labor. I think the NLRB, don't quote me on that, I think that's what it's called, but they said he was doing a lot of good things for labor and stuff. So even when I was like, okay, do I really want to move from Biden to Trump, I had to really think about it. But that was one thing that I said, okay, I'll give Biden something, because I like to give credit where credit is due. Okay, that was a good thing. I wish they talked more about that, and maybe it would have helped him before he dropped out.
As far as for me, I disagree almost entirely with the Republican Party platform, and I disagree with the majority of the Democrat Party platform. I think both parties really seek to protect capital interests and protect wealthy. So those are some things I really would disagree about, because I care more about the American people, especially the working class. So we probably have a lot of similarities there. But when it comes to Republican policies, I really think Project Warp Speed was great, especially to make sure that we do get some sort of infrastructure protecting from the spread of COVID. So getting vaccines in record time was very impressive, that I do give Trump the credit to. Don't know how much y'all might like that, but I do give him the credit.
Let's bring in our disagreeers.
I just have trouble understanding sometimes what the policy is on the other side. Up until very recently, Vice President Harris's website was selling T-shirts and actually had no policies written on it. And so when asked about her policies, when they asked, are Americans better off now than they were 4 years ago, she'll just punt the question and start answering something else. So for me, I would like to know what the policies are actually. And again, a lot of the stuff that she had said were her policies, now she's come over to the right a little bit, which I think is a good thing. I think a lot of people should be coming over to the right. But I would like to have a list. I would like to know exactly, and actually they just polled American people. 70-something% of people, this was yesterday, on both sides said they're confused about what Vice President Harris's policies are. So on both sides. And so I would, before saying, do I agree or do I not agree, what are the policies?
I looked before we even started this. They're there. I mean,
well, she said they were put there recently, so.
Policies are on there, right? She's talking about expanding the child tax credit. She's talking about getting the border plan back on track. She's talking about the opportunity economy. She's talking about supporting business owners. She's talking about making sure we have a middle class, right? I feel like most of us are probably, not to make an assumption, we're probably in the middle class. She's talking about helping us to elevate us, right? She's talking about taxing people that make millions of dollars, right? And making sure people that make $400,000 and below don't.
She's doing the whole unrealized capital gains tax and all these different things, which is just insane. I was watching an accountant actually go over Kamala's tax policy recently and really critique it bar for bar. And maybe we should respond and watch that on the channel at some point, because it was really enlightening, especially, as I said, I'm not deeply educated on the economy and how these things impact our daily lives, but she went and looked through it and it was very interesting to watch.
Their taxes aren't increased, and so it's there, and I think it would be beneficial if people did read it, right? Because there are good things in there, whether you agree with the candidate or not. She's trying to make sure that we, everyday folks, are able to have and live and sustain ourselves, and so.
Okay, so on her website there is a policy to give first-time home owners and first-time home buyers $25,000, and I would assume.
And I think she was doing for small businesses $50,000. If you guys can fact check me on that.
You guys would think that's a good thing, right? The point I would like to make is a lot of Democrats, they prop this up as a really good thing. Look at all the money she's going to give to these people. First of all, where is this money going to come from? That's a fair question. Secondly, these are for first-time home owners and first-time home buyers. In 2008, between 2008 and 2011, the housing crisis affected 53% of black people. These are people who already have a house. And these people were affected by predatory lending from banks. We're talking BMO Harris, we're talking Wells Fargo, and we're talking Bank of America. These people were really affected during the housing crisis of 2008 to 2011. So what will Kamala do to help those people? Because they already have a house. So I think that a lot of times when you throw out these flattery things, it sounds nice, but when you think about it, it really doesn't benefit the people that actually need help. I also remember during the housing crisis, Barack Obama, he bailed out the big banks and the airlines.
Yeah, very
we also
that.
have to remember that Kamala Harris did not take on the big banks. This is something that she pushes, and I admire that there are people who, they talk about it and they bring it up like, look at this strong black woman taking on the bank. Sorry, guys, she didn't do it. What she did was she brought them before the Senate, but she didn't prosecute them, and she didn't send anyone to jail. Any of these big bank CEOs who were screwing over majority black people and scamming them on these loans. But when Donald Trump, when he first came to office, the banks, for the first time, their interest rate went down to 2.9%, and that's for over 30 years on home loans. So people who had a hard time during the housing crisis, the crash back then, they will benefit from that.
And then he got fact-checked. The average interest rate is actually 4.09%, and they said it hit a low of 2.67% in December of 2020.
So that's something that I really think we have to remember when it comes to Trump and when it comes to Kamala, like who's really putting money in your pocket.
Yeah, and I think that was a great criticism, especially of Kamala Harris, who's endorsed by a lot of Wall Street, endorsed by a lot of corporate interests. But the alternative to that is not Donald Trump. And the reason why I'm on the Kamala side isn't because, again, I believe in everything about Kamala Harris. I'm very critical, but I do recognize if I'm comparing two people, one of which is going to be the executive of the country, I want the person that is going to be more comfortable for the working class. Not that either of them are going to be amazing for the working class, but when Donald Trump passes something like the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, might sound good in the title, might sound good when he talks about the taxes that were reduced for the working class. Those taxes are set to expire in 2027. And all of the gains that are happening for the people that are in the 1% are still going to continue.
This is stuff I got to look into. To be honest, I don't know what he was referring to there.
The last prompt is, no matter who wins, we'll be okay.
I'll walk forward for that. I mean, you mean in the world keeps spinning and the U.S. still the U.S. and we're still living under, our government and our systems. Yeah, I certainly think that's true. It just depends on what you mean by will be okay. There's a lot of different problems that we're going to face if we're living in a Kamala Harris presidency, and a lot of problems that we're currently facing that I feel like she will perpetuate further. So, yeah, will be okay. But I don't know. There's going to be a lot of issues.
Totally depends on how you define okay, and what you mean by that, and on what time frame. I think no matter who wins, we're generally on a downward bad trajectory. When you look at national debt, when you look at cultural decline, and a lot of other things. And I don't think that either candidate will reverse those or halt it. And so, in that sense, no. But at the same time, in a broader, ultimate sense, I don't know. I have to go, to be honest, to my faith and to my trust in something higher, that in the end things will work out how they're supposed to, and that gives me some measure of comfort. But I don't see that with my eyes with where we are right now. But I don't necessarily think that this single election is the most important of our election of our lifetimes, and it's the be-all end-all of our future, at least in the near term. I'm not fully persuaded of that.
Right. I think the cycle continues.
I have some conditions, the reason why I stood up. Me personally, I'm gonna be okay. Yes, I'm disabled, but I am a white dude. I present very cis. I'm somebody that, regardless of who's gonna come in, I'm gonna have a pretty okay time being able to adjust to that. As far as the rest of the country, I think there's a lot of people in marginalized groups that are gonna be heavily affected by a Trump administration. And even a Kamala Harris administration, there's still gonna be a lot of problems that we need to really fight for.
So even if Kamala is elected, she has a horrific record, and we're still here now. So I think that it won't be the way I want them to be, but this idea that the world's gonna explode, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think I'll just be very disappointed that someone like her won, but I don't think democracy or the world's going to completely go away.
Right, it's like a slow drip type thing.
I agree. As a cisgendered white male, I don't think it's as crazy as everybody makes it out to be. I think everybody picks their own tribes that they want to be a part of, and everybody wants to, argue their point and this, that, and the other. But I think the government, a lot of Americans think the government is not where it needs to be. They think that it's corrupt, and that I don't think that's going to change unless something crazy happens, but even then, as Americans, we are all very privileged to be here, and I don't think the world's going to end, because everything's got to keep going. Everybody's got to get their Coca-Cola, candy, whatever it is, and I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon.
Let's bring in our
Yeah, I mean, it's a republic if you can keep it. Isn't that the age-old quote?
disagreeers.
I feel like I've been affected personally. Like, it was weird for me to see that, like, everyone talks about them and obviously they're real people, but it's really weird to see that it affects your own lives. Like, COVID was the first thing where it's like, wow, these people's decisions really do touch everybody's lives. So I feel that it's like very important that, like, it made me have that self-awareness and realization that these people's decisions and where we put these people is going to affect our daily lives in a sense. And that makes me feel like, well, then there is some importance and we could be okay or not be okay based on who's there and who leads us or who makes those decisions or who is in that room at that given time when something is voted for. That's all very important, and those things do change our lives.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had like a political wake-up call. Maybe they were pretty apathetic or like uninvolved in politics. And then like the BLM riots was a big one for a lot of people that I hear where they're like, whoa, wait a second, these people really are impacting my daily life. And then COVID, of course, was huge for people going, oh, wait a second, there are two people with very different responses to this issue, and you have kids getting out of school, which I imagine is what impacted her. She seems on the younger end of things. I think she's in college, so having your college life affect, your high school life affected, being on virtual school, how it affected businesses and who was essential workers, the vaccine mandates, and all these different things that were suddenly thrust upon people. It had a partisan edge to it. So I can imagine that's a wake-up call for a lot of people.
So for me, it's two different buckets. It's domestic policy and it's foreign policy. And as somebody who's come first generation myself from Iran and also who has family living in Israel, I just feel like this appeasement policy of the left, whether it was Obama or whether it was the Biden-Harris administration, the appeasement policy of the Middle East does not work. Since the last 3.5 years, by either direct payments or removing sanctions on Iran, Iran has been enriched by $150 billion, which is fueling all of these proxy wars, whether it's Hamas or the Houthis or Hezbollah in the north, and is causing real life death on both sides, right? So I feel like this appeasement foreign policy thing is absolutely a disaster, and that's one of the main reasons why I don't think we will be okay, because it is going to affect American lives. If there is a war there, which we've inched towards many times, it will be Americans. It will be real ground boots on the ground. Domestically, economically, I think that clearly we're not better off right now than we were 4 years ago. And I think these liberal policies, whether it's just this overspending that just increases inflation and touches each and every one of us, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, is real. Secondly, I think that a lot of the policies that the left has that, again, are just wild. A lot of the gender transition in minors, as a plastic surgeon, I see it. And I think that that's a huge mistake. I think trying to separate kids from their parents or not having to get parental consent for transitioning a minor. The school has to call me when they want to give my kid Tylenol, and Newsom passed a law a kid over 12 doesn't have to involve their parents in the state of California if they want to gender transition, and I think that
says here the California law AB 1955 says supports academic futures and educators for today's Youth Act prohibits school districts, charter schools, and other educational institutions from enacting or enforcing a policy that requires an employee to disclose information about a student's sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression to anyone without the child's consent. There you go.
That's
ridiculous.
So it's not ridiculous, as this guy's saying. It's very much real.
So I think that morally, trying to remove God, trying to talk down the nuclear family, which has been shown to give stability to kids, and really playing on people's mental health issues is going to be a disaster for this country.
There's no choice in this election. There isn't. You say two people, no. There's only one choice.
Then why are you here right now? Like, come on.
Because for me, like I said, January 6th is disqualifying. You can sing all the hymns you want and call them hostages or whatever. These people brought a Confederate flag to the Capitol, and he defends them to this day. How does that even? He's talked about destroying the Constitution. Project 2025 is written by everyone from his former administration. Project 2025.
Just lie after lie after lie. Like, how much can you just continue to lie? It's just crazy. And he's actively said, I don't support Project 2025 at all. How much can you just continue to spout lies after you've spent how much time with these people talking through them?
Would eliminate public school education. Do you want to talk about extreme?
I have done multiple deployments. I left this country to go serve, and I came back with.
And she still thinks an AR-15 is an automatic machine gun. What happened during your deployment? I'm sorry.
I don't have another 4 years to gamble some of my rights. I just don't. And I don't care if Trump is saying that he does not support Project 2025. He's a liar. We've already said he's a liar, he's a businessman, a con man, whatever you want to call it. I don't have the time as a woman to play around with my health to get even less healthcare, access to healthcare for women's rights. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, I just don't have the time to play with it. And so I feel like if you were really backing up a lot of the things that you were saying, like, it's easy to, like, you're contradicting yourself. Like, you're going back and forth.
As a queer
How so? How so?
Black person, my future is only safe under a Kamala administration. Amen. Trump has already shown.
Oh yes, because all those queer black people that died the first time Trump was president, they're no longer around to defend themselves. What are you talking about? Your life is only safe during a Kamala Harris presidency. You've already lived through 4 years of Trump, and somehow you're still here to do this debate to this very day. It makes absolutely no sense.
His Supreme Court choices, with the decisions, with his support of Project 2025, that he is willing to.
How many times do we have to say he has not supported Project 2025 and they're still running on the lie?
And has taking away rights from whether you're a woman, whether you're black, whether you're LGBTQ, and that's only going to erode under his administration. So I think if we want to be safe, Kamala's the only choice.
That's where we're going to have to end our discussion. I see you all. We're all Americans. We have to acknowledge that. Sure. It'll be interesting to see where this election goes, but I'm really grateful for all of you to come, share your experiences, share your point of view. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Pat. Thank you.
Oh, there you go. And now they're off. That was Jubilee Middle Ground, Trump versus Harris. What an enlightening experience. So interesting to listen to. And I hope we did enough fact checking and talking through all of these points. Obviously, you guys know my perspective on this upcoming election, and that should be no secret, especially after this video. But my goodness, do we have some work to do as a nation in whatever direction this next election goes. Let's get into your super chats and hear from you guys on all these issues.
Let's do it. Kennedy was our first one today. Says, hey, Kamala and Taylor, how are you guys? Sorry for only $5 tip. You guys are looking slay as always. Slay, 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 slay. Wanted to hear Tay say slay.
That's my dog saying slay in the background, guys. If you can hear him howling, that's Wemby. Oh. Thank you so much for the compliment. I appreciate it. We appreciate your super chat. That's so very kind.
Thank you. Timothy says, Abla, why aren't you in this vid? That would have been epic. Also, I agree that Kamala's campaign is running on hope that we all forget the last 4 years.
Yeah, right. I was supposed to be in this video, as I said, so it's unfortunate that I didn't get to be there for this one. But, I was dealing with my grandmother's medical issues in Florida and unfortunately couldn't be here. But, man, I wish I was, because what did I just watch? Hi.
Scott Aragon says, shout out to the most beautiful lady and all the great work that you do. Much love.
Thank you. That's so very sweet. Appreciate you.
Corey Willis says, you guys are the only thing keeping me sane in my far left college. Should I stay strong in my values or bullshit my way through it? Any advice? Love you guys.
We were talking about this earlier, actually. It's a tough call. It depends on what you want on the other end of it. It's like, if you want to, maintain your sense of integrity and really battle things and go head to head with people who are going to try to demean you for your values or give you a low grade, then absolutely stand up for yourself, double down on it and fight for what you have to fight for. If you're just looking to get out of this whole system and get your degree and move on to better things and utilize your degree in the way you see fit, then hey, you can play the game if you want. I don't know that I could write something that I disagree with in that way and just allow them to influence me in that way, but I could see it, when you're weighing the risk versus benefit, how many might move in that other direction.
Yeah, I don't think they could have much to add. It's just a matter of strategy and what you can stomach. And I like Jordan Peterson says, don't do anything that makes you feel weak, morally weak. And Solzhenitsyn says, let the lie come in the world, but not through me.
Yeah.
And, you have to stay true to your values, especially if you're totally painted into a corner, but that's something that's up to your own conscience. And, if you determine that you can kind of, grit your teeth and bite your tongue and get through it because you can be more impactful on the other side of whatever you're going through, then, I'm not going to judge you for that. And I think maybe it could be totally justified in making that choice, but maybe it's time to just say, to hell with it, go full scorched earth and, let the chips fall where they may, just going with your heart. So good luck. That's tough. We talked about that before the show because someone else had DM'd me basically the same question just the other day. And, we were talking about our answers. Celtic Blacksmith says, I always wondered what it'd be like to be on this show's, but my give a shit knob is turned down so terminally low, I just hurt my feelings anymore.
You mean to be on Middle Ground?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I always wondered what it would be like until I did it, and it was, it was fine. And, it's like a little nerve-wracking at first because you're like, oh my gosh, how's this going to come out? How am I going to sound on the other end of this? And when you're living in the moment, it's very hard to like perceive yourself from an audience perspective. But it's fun. It's definitely fun.
After watching a few of these, it's like the bar seems so low, like, how could I get that you'd feel self-conscious, and I probably would too, put in that environment, but also like when you actually watch the quality and the level of debate, it's like all you have to do is say generally true things and make some common sense and be somewhat calm and charitable, and you'll come across better than most in this.
Yeah, it's like more having to deal with the people on the other end who are commenting and stuff. Like, and these people get a lot of hate, especially the conservatives who are on the show, for saying the things that they say. And if you're not prepared for that, it is really like rough to deal with on the other end of these videos, especially depending on their virality and how far some of these clips go.
DTX Hero says people need to get off their high horse whenever people mispronounce a name or word. Who cares if you know how to pronounce it correctly? What matters is that you know what someone's talking about. Moreover, Kamala's name is pronounced both ways interchangeably all the time, and it's virtually impossible to remember which is the correct one. I often second guess myself whenever I say her name.
Yeah, it's fine. There's names that we mispronounce all the time, words we mispronounce all the time, and that's okay. It's not some sort of slight to the person to say their name incorrectly.
Yeah, Kamala, Tato.
Whatever.
Joy says, Taylor, when are you going to get on one of these Jubilee panels? You'd eat up, preferably with omelet there too.
We need to get you on them, Taylor.
Preferably with omelet there, and then I can just add little tidbits here and there like I do on the show. More used to
Taylor
that.
can hold his own.
Oh, I guess I'll be up for it. We'll see. Timothy W. says, my brother's girlfriend was hit by a car driven by an illegal migrant. She received no compensation, was seriously injured. She's better now, and he got away.
It's happening a lot. And even if they don't get away, it's your taxpayer dollars that are putting them through the prison system or through the court system and all these different things. Wemby's upset about it. You hear him screaming? He's upset about this.
He's howling.
He's howling. You need to do something about us.
Sasha O'Neill says, hey, A&T, don't know if you could put on, but it might be interesting for others to see Roy Beck's explanation on this issue with gumballs. I love you guys.
Do you hear my dogs right now? Can you hear them? The audience must be able to hear how insane they're going right now. They've been left downstairs alone, and they're just at the downstairs bottom just screaming up here because they could hear me talking to you guys, and they're not happy about it.
Let them in.
If I won't leave right now. Maybe next show we'll let him in.
But Sasha, we'll have to look into Roy Beck's gumball explanation. I'm guessing that's like explaining one of the economic issues.
About immigration, I have seen that. It is a it's a brilliant video. Maybe one day we'll pull it up on this show.
All right. Celtic Blacksmith says, Kamala and Taylor both in a Jubilee at the same time. Y'all would be cooking so hard there'd be a mushroom cloud over that Jubilee studio.
Kitchen brisk twisting like a stir fry. Yeah, we would be cooking. We would be cooking. Okay. They ain't ready for that. That's what it is.
Brittany M says, I'm a state certified drive tester, and I cannot tell you how many of these illegal migrants have failed for almost causing an accident on the test.
Point taken. Received. Noted. Yeah, we're with you on that one. I mean, and then you say, oh, well, do you think they're stupid because they don't know how to drive? No, I think they're individuals who don't know how to drive. It's literally it. I'm not saying anything about how ignorant they are or their mental capacity. I'm sure they all have the capacity to learn to drive, but they just don't know yet.
And look, standards are different in different places. Like I lived 3 years in Latin America. I've been to Haiti, even to India. People have very different ways of driving and what's considered like, acceptable behavior. And in the U.S., is one of the most like buttoned up. I mean, Western Europe pretty the same, but you have to be very like deferential and you have to obey all the laws and stop even though if there's nobody there. And people don't do that in foreign countries. In a lot of foreign countries, it's just they're not used to it. So that it stands to reason. But you know what, Brittany, we actually talked to a government official in your town, and he said everyone's driving great and everything's happening fine. So we don't listen to the concerns of actual citizens with firsthand experiences. We listen to one random official that we fact check you with.
It's a-okay, guys. Don't worry about it.
Timothy again says, I'm a bisexual Jewish man. If I went into a Middle Eastern country or into a Palestinian territory, I would be killed. Yes, third world, simple fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we have to talk about these things, that they exist. And it doesn't mean that these people's lives are worthless or don't have meaning or that they can't assimilate and be integrated into a new culture. We just have to acknowledge the cultural differences and separations that exist between different regions. And that's a fact. And it's not even to say that everybody in that region believes the things that are being propagated in their region. That's okay. But if we can't have a comprehensive discussion about it, we're going to run into problems, and we have been running into problems.
Legitly Spelunking says, lefties love to scream about boundaries when it comes to emotions and relationships, but nothing on people coming into the country and living with us.
Yeah, all the boundaries for themselves and the way that they feel, and the whole world must reflect the way that they feel and must like bend down to their whim as to the emotions that they're constantly swirling through. But you know, and there's just no consistency with that being the way you view the world.
Yeah, migrant runs over your neighbor. The problem is you being racist about stereotypes with migrant driving.
What'd you do to invite the migrant running you over?
Right.
Think about that.
Victim blaming. My Crazy Opinions says, hi guys, I'm the guy. Oh, we read this during the thing. Oh, he's the guy with the red Trump helmet. Hope you liked my performance. That was Osiris. You did pretty good, man.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I did very well.
Stayed calm about a lot of facts.
Yep.
So nice work. Fog says, my friends are liberal and I feel so alone and ostracized in my beliefs and what I know to be true. How do I go about navigating this?
Well, if your friends make you feel ostracized, they're not your friends. That's number one. If you feel like you don't live in a comfortable environment to be yourself around the people who you're calling friends, I would reevaluate your relationships with them. And that doesn't mean you can't have friends that we disagree with politically. I 100% support that. In fact, I think it's really necessary in a lot of ways to just have a life that's not necessarily boring and where you can like learn to develop relationships with people who you disagree with. But if they make you feel shunned or ostracized or othered, they're not your friends, girl or man, whoever just commented that. Don't want to misgender.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with Amal a bit. And also, like, I try to take the approach that, like, I will be cordial and friendly with you. And if we appear to disagree on politics, like, okay, I'm still willing to be cool with you and hang out. And, you know, and I play beach volleyball. I have a lot of friends and people I consider friends that I go to the birthday party and stuff like that, that I probably disagree with if it came to politics. But we don't have to put that at the center of our relationship. And if they're content to do that, I'm content to do that. And I'm totally fine just hanging out and vibing. And the relationship's not going to end because of me. But if you're going to insist and back me in a corner and say, I can't be friends with you if you have certain opinions, then okay, it's never going to work out. I'm not going to, you know, change for you or pretend I'm something I'm not.
Yeah.
But also, I'm down to make this happen if you are. So I feel like you can't do much better than that. Otavio Duarte says, I'm from Brazil and love watching your videos. I believe this election is not just for the US, but for the free world. Without Trump and Elon Musk, Brazil would definitely fall into a dictatorship.
Yeah, there's like a lot of different things at hand here. And what happens in America does really affect the world. A lot of people look to America for guidance and for a frame of reference as to what freedom looks like. So you want somebody who's going to uphold that image. And I don't think Kamala Harris does that. That's just my personal opinion. And it does have a sort of ripple effect across the world. And that's something I didn't quite think about until you stated that about Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, putting that image of Kamala, like, negotiating foreign policy and sitting in rooms with Putin
please.
And stuff, like she can't talk to friendly media without a script, and you're going to put her in a negotiation table with Kim Jong-un and friggin'
leaders of the Taliban.
Yeah, she's just going to start nervously cackling and you know,
bad signs.
Yikes. But shout out watching from Brazil. Muito obrigado.
Yes.
Trevor says, Amala, may you always recognize the beauty that fills you both inside and out as clearly as others do. Your presence brings light and joy to those around you.
So
also,
nice.
family's not always blood.
That is so nice and so sweet. I really appreciate that. Yeah, 100%. And I 100% agree with you. Not the nice things you said about me, although that is nice. But yeah, 100%. Thank you.
You should write inspirational messages. Don't take this the wrong way. You can be like a greeting card writer or something. That sounds
Hell yeah. Put that on a pillow.
Very uplifting.
Yes.
Yeah. But we know you meant it. Not to belittle that at all. Enamelin AHC says, I don't mind disagreeing with people. It's the arrogance that these Democrats have that makes compromise impossible. It's not the Republicans majorly.
Yeah, it's like the arrogance, the moral high horse that they view, and they say like you are like lesser than us, or not a good person because of the things that you believe, which is just so ridiculous. And we're not saying that about them. So I don't know why that consistent energy is felt on that side of things.
Yeah, I just pulled this up. There was a study recently. It said conservatives consistently showed more empathy toward people on the left than people on the left showed toward conservatives. I think there was a study where they gave hypothetical scenarios and people on the left extended less empathy to their suffering political opponents than allies or neutral targets. These effects were strongly shown by liberals, but were weaker among conservatives, such that conservatives consistently showed more empathy to liberals than liberals showed to conservatives.
There you go.
So it's a science, which makes sense when it's like a moral, it's like you hear the left thinks the right is evil, the right thinks the left is wrong or incorrect. And when you have this sort of like moralized, totalizing vision of the world, sort of like Tom Sowell talks about in Visions of the Anointed, and it follows your logic. Oh, he's an existential threat to democracy. To be logically consistent, you would extend less empathy. But yeah, that's the source of much of our polarization, unfortunately. Nia Veseri says, fact check. The woman said she was a veteran and that she carried an AR-15 in the military, but the military doesn't use AR-15s. They use M16A1, which is a modified AR-15 that has an automatic feature.
Oh, I think she was saying she didn't carry an AR-15. Isn't that what she said? I didn't.
Perhaps,
she said she
I didn't
never.
catch it if she said that.
Oh, I think that's
she definitely demonstrated some ignorance relative to guns.
Topic. Yeah.
In the way she spoke about them.
Yeah.
Live from NYC says Wall Street controls the economy.
Okay. I have to think about that. Fair enough.
Piella Gibson says, hello, I was left for years but had doubts and questions that I couldn't voice. Found you guys and now I feel like things finally make sense. Thank you.
That's so great. I'm glad that you found us, and hopefully we're helping you on your journey of making things make sense. You're always welcome here.
As Amala likes to say, make it make sense.
Make it make sense.
We try to do it.
We try. We do.
DTX Hero again says Obama did not spend 8 years in office only for the economy, which actually got progressively worse under him, to turn around during Trump's term.
Wait, say that again? Sorry?
Obama did not spend 8 years in office only for the economy to turn around during Trump's term. The economy got worse under Obama.
Gotcha. Okay. Understood. Yeah. I mean, the whole you inherited the problems, but you inherited the goodness.
You can play the game all day long both ways.
You really can. Yeah. It's tough. Tough to track.
Sydney says the only explanation for Democrats not admitting to there being any extremists on their side is because they themselves are extreme. They just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an extreme thing to not admit to extremists on your side, which is a little interesting. You have to be lacking in some sort of reasoning to not be able to admit that there's extremists on your side. That doesn't mean you identify with them, doesn't mean you share their interests. It just means that they do exist and they do claim to uphold your very same ideology. So why would you not be able to admit that? It's a very strange thing. It was quite shocking to watch that segment of the show.
Yeah, it was similar to the question about whether there were anything that your candidate would do that would cause you not to vote for them.
Yeah.
Are you here in good faith? Are you a rational person, or are you a total ideologue? And it was an effective test, but It's just crazy that in even of itself is not enough to wake someone up or realize that they're being so unreasonable.
Yeah.
Ray Yes says, Amla, I'm here, take this. And it's a ring emoji.
Thank you for the offer. I do have a man's, though. Your girl has got a man's, okay? I'm locked in. Cuffed up, locked in.
Nicodemus 1984 says, good evening. I can't stand hearing I feel like during these Jubilee videos anymore. Feelings do not make a reality. Hats off to both of you for managing to get through these discussions calmly.
That's so funny. I find myself saying I feel like, or, things of that nature all the time.
This
when
is like
I'm
a verbal
speaking.
tick to kind of insulate it a little bit.
Should work on
not
that.
come off too strong.
Right. Right. Got to be more direct.
If you overdo it, I feel like it gets annoying, but I don't know. It's an interesting thing to hone in on, though. Author Cassie Beebe says, God is on the throne and he will still be on the throne regardless of who wins this election. Like I said before, I mean, from a Christian perspective, that is a source of comfort.
From a non-religious
you look around
perspective,
and see all the craziness.
Not so much. But I'm glad that you have that. I'm glad that you have that for yourself.
Minnesota Nice says, hey there, hey and hey, any chance we will be seeing you guys at Winona or Minneapolis this fall? Would be great to meet you guys again.
No plans so far, but would be happy to go back to Winona. That'd be the third time. Fun campus. Loved it.
Yeah, we got to get you doing more speeches again.
I know. Got to get back at it, I guess.
They do so well as content, and it's fun meeting y'all.
Yes,
and
it is.
Going places in person. So, but I believe that was actually our last one of the day. Oh, wait, Mitchell Salazar says, hi, I never cared about politics and still do not want to be political. Feel that freedom to be or not be political itself is slowly being taken away.
Yes. You know what, Mitchell, you just gave me perfect segue into what tomorrow's video is about. Making a video tomorrow about Chapel Roan. She came out and said, hey, I'm not endorsing either candidate and I don't feel the need to. And people are just coming at this girl for saying something very similar to what you said. It's okay to not be on a side. It's okay to say that there are problems on both sides. It's okay to say, I don't want to be involved. It really is okay. So we're going to be talking about that more in depth tomorrow, which I hope you guys get to see that. I think Wednesday we'll do our buddy Dean, the woke student, going up against, I think, 20 or 25 conservatives. It's been interesting. I've been seeing the clips going everywhere. So we're going to talk about his performance and maybe what I would say if I were there to debate the young man. I hear he held his own in quite a way. So I'm excited to see how his performance actually played out. So catch us Tuesday for Chapel Roan. Catch us Wednesday for Dean and the 20 conservatives. We'll have fun with that one. And guys, if you...
real quick, I missed one from Chicken Pork Adobo here.
Yep, don't miss
Says
him.
they should have asked why Democrats were okay that they were robbed of the opportunity to choose their presidential candidate, yet they scream democracy.
Yeah, they should. I think that is an interesting question to have them contend with and see what their answer is. Well, MB does too, clearly. And maybe they'll do future videos on Jubilee about this topic because they seem like they're really focusing on the election and this sort of left-right thing right now. So hopefully they'll get to that and we'll be able to unpack that in a future reaction because we've spoken about that at length on this show as well. And guys, that's going to close out our show for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe, click the notification bell to be notified every single time we're live. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Universal Time. Plus, we post videos for you guys every single day. As I said, tomorrow is Chapel Roan. So, HOTTOGL. That video is going to be hot to go, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your Monday, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.